So moved.
Second.
All in favor of approving the agenda? Well, first, is there any discussion?
This is just the agenda.
Just the agenda?
Consent agenda.
No, not the consent agenda. Okay, then we will, all in favor of approving the agenda as presented, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda has been adopted. We will have the reading of our equity statement by Vice President Lyman.
Columbia Public Schools, through action and in partnership with families and community, will uphold the values, policies, and practices that promote cultural competence. We will accept, embrace, and empower students and staff in their individual identities to establish and sustain human dignity, justice, and equitable treatment, and inclusiveness in the classroom and workplace.
Thank you. We have some wonderful special recognition this month. I will turn the time over to Dr. Porter and Mr. Moore to handle that.
Didn't I? Thank you. I'd like to recognize Christy Hayward. Christy, would you come up and join me, please? Yay! Christy Hayward has been named the 2024 School Psychologist of the Year by the Missouri Association of School Psychologists. Nominees were evaluated in terms of performance and contribution in these areas: direct service to children, schools, and family, service through the administration or supervision of school psychological or related services, service to the profession, through development in local and state organizations, and through research and publication. Christy is a nationally certified school psychologist within our Department of Special Services and has served with distinction for the last 7 years. She currently serves as an invaluable resource to the teachers, administrators, parents, and students at Cedar Ridge Elementary and New Haven Elementary. Christy is a strong advocate for system-wide supports for students academically and behaviorally, and she works diligently at the district and state levels to promote effective practices. As this year's state recipient, her name will be recommended to the National Association of School Psychologists for consideration of their School Psychologist of the Year. So maybe we'll be seeing Christy back up here for another award. Please join me in congratulating Christy on this amazing achievement. It is my pleasure to now recognize our Staff of the Month. As you know, we encourage administrators to send us their best once a month, and we have 3 of the best here tonight to recognize. We are proud to introduce to you Kathy Cox from Benton Elementary, Candace Sweet from CPS Online, and Addison Sprague from Elliott Battle Elementary. Thank you for being here, and we are proud to recognize you tonight. Congratulations.
Thank you again to our incredible staff, and congratulations to those recipients of this month's award. We'll call up Dr. Holtz, who has some recognitions for Substitute of the Month.
Good evening. The administration is pleased to recognize 2 EdgeStaff substitutes as Substitutes of the Month. Substitutes are nominated by CPS employees. Our first substitute to be recognized is Cheryl Nichols. Cheryl is a CPS graduate and started subbing with EdgeStaff in the fall of 2022. Along with subbing for a variety of teachers day to day, she started the school year filling in for a teacher vacancy for a few weeks at Lang Middle School. Ms. Nichols has spent most of the semester filling a teacher vacancy at Battle High School. She has received nominations this year from the principal secretary and teacher at Battle High School. They are grateful she chooses to sub often at Battle High School. Cheryl makes a sincere effort to get to know the students. She is very consistent in making sure lesson plans left by the teacher are used and completed. She is very friendly, helpful, and always willing to jump in where needed. Cheryl always has a smile on her face and a positive attitude. This semester, while in a long-term role at Battle High School, she has taken the kids under her wing, encouraged them, holds them accountable, and asks questions when she needs to. She's a welcome addition to our staff this semester, and I think we are lucky to have such an enthusiastic teacher step up mid-year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Our next substitute, who is unable to attend tonight, is Susan McDermott Griggs. Susan is a retired CPS teacher who began subbing with EdgeStaff in the fall of 2022. She often works in CPS high schools. Ms. McDermott Griggs has received nominations this year from a teacher and administrator at the Columbia Area Career Center. She continues to invest in CPS scholars, going above and beyond to make connections with students and staff. She truly enjoys these connections, which is evident in her positive demeanor. She raises the bar for substitutes and works hard to encourage students to continue learning whenever she is filling in for their teacher. The students know she cares about them, and she does her best to make their time meaningful. We are thankful for the contributions of these substitutes as they have exemplified excellence. Thank you.
And if you know someone who might be interested in being a substitute teacher, please have them get a hold of us. We'll turn the time over to Dr. Yearwood, who has a special item of recognition.
Yes. Thank you, President Waters. Columbia Public Schools has received the Association of School Business Officials Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for the fiscal year ending 2023 for its annual comprehensive financial report. This award represents a significant achievement and reflects our commitment to transparency and high-quality financial reporting. This award represents a significant achievement and reflects the district's continued commitment to making sure that our financial affairs are transparent and in order. The Office of the Chief Financial Officer and the Business Services Department is charged with managing and providing a thorough reporting of financial information, which has been deemed exceptional and deserving of recognition. Please join me in congratulating our Chief Financial Officer, Heather MacArthur, and her team for receiving the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting. Congratulations, Mrs. MacArthur and your team. Thank you. And President Waters, we want to wish Mrs. MacArthur a happy birthday as well. Happy birthday.
Oh, I think birthdays are in the air today. We also have a board member whose
Oh.
birthday is today,
Oh.
Miss April Farrell.
Okay. Okay.
I might have entered the world a little bit earlier than Heather then.
There's plenty of crowns to go around, don't you worry. We will now have public comment. We invite the public to give comment at this time. Public comments will be received from individuals who registered in advance. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes, which will count down on the timer on the wall. Comments related to disciplinary actions or other matters which could be the subject of a grievance process or comments that are derogatory of any person, business, or organization will be ruled out of order. Please refrain from any use of obscene language or disruptive and/or threatening behavior. We ask the audience to please listen without participation. Patrons who did not register in advance may always make a written public comment by completing a form available on the back table. Please place the completed form in the blue box. Please come forward after I have read your name. We'll first hear from Nicole Galloway.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Galloway, and I am here to speak on behalf of my family and other concerned families from Grant School. I currently have 2 kids at Grant and have been fortunate to be part of the Grant community since 2013. We strongly oppose Option 2 under the board's proposed redistricting plan. Option 2 arbitrarily cuts a line through the middle of our neighborhood and moves families that live blocks away from Grant to Russell Elementary instead. This would reduce neighborhood cohesiveness and increase busing costs. The plan would also push Russell and West further from diversity metrics set by the district. All of this is in direct conflict with the board's stated goals and policies. We want to preserve our walkable, historic neighborhood school. Since Grant opened over 100 years ago and our homes were built, we have been in the Grant school boundaries. A group of about 20 parents went door to door in our neighborhood this weekend, and there was overwhelming disbelief that our families could be removed from Grant, or this was even a possibility being considered by the board. There was strong opposition to Option 2. In public statements, the board's consultant has said that Option 2 would, quote, help maintain community cohesion. This is false, and it appears the consultant hasn't set foot in our neighborhood. So before the board votes on this next week, I invite the consultant and any member of the board to join my family to walk the handful of blocks it takes us to get to Grant School. Then the next day, I'd like the consultant to show me the walking and bike path to Russell, almost 2 miles away. Where will our families cross west? Where are the sidewalk and traffic calming measures to keep our kids safe? And since those don't exist, who's going to pay for that? Because the consultant likely hasn't put thought into this, being so unfamiliar with our neighborhood, I'd like them to show us where in an already tight budget the additional transportation costs are going to come from. We are here, we are active because we deeply care about Grant School and the Grant community. We care about the kids, the families, the teachers, and the administrators. We are asking you to keep the Grant community intact and to oppose Option 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, no audience participation. That means no clapping, no booing, no hissing, no throwing, etc. Thank you for your attention to that. Next, we'll hear from Robin Shelp.
Good evening, my name is Robin Shelp, and tonight I want to address the High Road presentation, which will be included in the CSIP update. I appreciate that at the special August board meeting, you requested this report at the beginning of 2024 so that you could make an informed decision about the High Road contract. I am not going to speak directly to the content on the 4 slides which are on the agenda for the High Road presentation. Instead, tonight my plea to the board is the same plea that I have made many times before you, to make sure that all students have the guarantee of accountability and high standards for their education, whether they be in a RISE classroom, Triple E, a 5th grade classroom north of 70, or in a separate school. Over the past many months, the board has been having hard conversations about accountability and standards for the schools throughout the district, and tonight that conversation turns to High Road. I hope you will continue to ask hard questions about demographics, oversight by the district, why these students can't be educated at Rosetta or Bethel, and others questions. Parents have been asking for accountability for this education CPS is providing students through High Road for years. There has been little to no oversight since the school opened in 2015. Federal law states that every child with an IEP is entitled to a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment possible. Columbia Public School District's mission is to provide an excellent education to all students. Please remember that the students at High Road are still CPS students. If any of our students with IEPs are not getting an appropriate education, then special services must answer for that. As board members, you are responsible for making sure the district's mission is achieved and that CPS provides an excellent education to all students. Later tonight, you're going to have a discussion about charter schools. You're going to talk about public tax dollars being spent at schools run by a private entity, schools that aren't held to the same standards, oversight, and accountability as schools within our district. I hope you will be honest with yourselves in regards to how High Road fits in this narrative. For 9 years, the board has approved giving CESI, a private company out of Pennsylvania, millions of local taxpayer dollars to educate Columbia students without asking any questions. The district must be accountable for the quality of this education at High Road. I ask that you prioritize oversight, accountability, equity, and high standards for any education being provided to CPS students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shelp. We'll next hear from Brian McAndrew.
Good evening. I am Brian McAndrew, a parent of 2 children who we look forward to sending to CPS schools and the director of counseling at Battle High School. Let me start by saying that I have a great deal of respect for this school board. I believe that in your hearts you want to do what is best for the students who attend CPS schools. That said, in order to provide equitable educational experience, this board must consider how changing district boundaries will impact buildings. Per DESE demographic data from the last school year, there are 3 times the percentage of students qualifying for free and reduced lunch at Battle than there are at Rockbridge High School. While financial need does not affect the ability of our students to achieve, it does place additional challenges in their way which present themselves at school. Ensuring our students have the support they need is time-intensive and involves more one-on-one intervention. As a result, our students, particularly those in the academic middle, are not getting the attention they deserve because the bulk of our efforts are going toward our students with more profound need. Our administration and staff work tirelessly to address this, but it just isn't enough. I'm glad to see that the board is considering a couple of additional teaching positions. We've needed them for several years. As part of the district boundaries, there is a plan to adjust the high schools to address the overutilization at Rockbridge and Hickman. This makes total sense. They are facing overcrowding. However, I would urge the board to think about what sending more students to Battle High School will do to address the more extensive needs many of our current students face, as I do not believe that this is sustainable. I have been told by board members that a map addressing economic inequity is not being considered due to transportation costs. First, I'm extremely disappointed that this board and this district are comfortable allowing such a stark segregation of students in need to continue to exist. Second, it is the duty of this district to provide an equitable educational opportunity for all of its students. If the board is not going to consider an equitable map of our high schools, can we at least try to make it a little more equitable? Short of that, we need more resources. We need more teachers, administrators, and counselors to address the needs of our current students before adding more students to our Spartan family. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. We will next hear from Dr. Brittany Fatoma.
Good evening, everyone. It is so great to be here, and I want to thank you for this time. I am here tonight to encourage, motivate, maybe even strongly push the board to lead in a very important issue. Presently, right now, our students are struggling, specifically, our scholars, and we want to really focus on what that issue is. And right now, 9% and 11% of our Black scholars are scoring proficient or advanced. This is an issue that impacts our entire community, and I am strongly encouraging the board to lead the charge. I believe that the board can be the example of what that looks like. Putting in policies and practices that are equitable, that are tailored to support Black children. A lot of times we think, oh, it's Black administrators or Black teachers, but no, it is everyone's responsibility to educate all of our scholars here in Columbia Public Schools. I want to close with this. As a community, we recognize it's a collective responsibility in addressing systemic inequities in education, whether through grassroots advocacy like Worley Street Roundtable or other community partnerships and targeted initiatives. We must all do the work to dismantle barriers to success and create a future where every child has the opportunity to fulfill their potential. The opportunity gap among our Black scholars in Columbia Public Schools is not just a school issue. It is a community issue, and it is imperative that as a community we address this issue. And I am pleading, begging, and admonishing the board to lead the charge. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fatoma. We will next hear from Stephanie Wyatt.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Wyatt, and I've been a member of the Fairview community since 2013 as a parent, PTA member and president, volunteer, secretary, paraprofessional, and now special education teacher. And I'm speaking tonight on behalf of each of those roles. Fairview is a special place, and what makes it special is the community that has been created and prioritized. In my time at Fairview, I have seen PTA and parent-led responses to students in need. There are scholarships for participation in clubs and events, parents even advocating the science department to create scholarships for kids to go on the Smoky Mountains trip. There have been countless donations of various resources, but overall, there is a commitment to scan every part of our school and events to make them accessible for all. This led to providing transportation to and from our school carnival this year so that members of our community who could otherwise not come could participate. Members of our community lead community outreach programs such as kindergarten readiness and preparation classes, and many of our teachers attend a back-to-school event at the Columbia Square each August. And many of us have a relationship with their after-school program director to further connect home and school. And everything I've mentioned has been because someone saw a need for families within our community. Fairview has built a rapport with our students, kids, and students and families that live within the area projected to be moved to Russell for over 20 years. We, as a community, have put in the time to understand how to best serve this piece of our community. We make adjustments and continual efforts to make the educational experience of all of our students equitable and positive. Because of our longstanding relationships with the children and families, Fairview is a place of known support and safety. And having this already vulnerable population start over will be detrimental to our kids. A study from UC Davis Center for Poverty Research sums it up well. It is essential that district officials work to ensure that minority and low-income students and families do not bear the brunt of redistricting outcomes. And redistricting options 1 and 3 will do just that. So as someone who cares very deeply about my school community staying intact and maintaining the fabric of our community and protecting our most vulnerable students, I firmly stand against options 1 and 3 and ask that you consider the impact on our students before casting your vote. And I want to leave you with this. We aren't fighting to keep our students to maintain diversity numbers or fulfill a quota. We want each of our kids to stay at Fairview because we know them and we love them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wyatt. Our last speaker will be Nicole Salas.
Hello, I am Nicole Salas, and I am a Fairview parent, and I'm also the assistant principal there. And I am also here to oppose options 1 and 3 with the boundary changes. I understand that this is an incredibly hard decision and that kids from somewhere have to move. And I know that sometimes we just look at numbers and where those are going. 2 out of 3 of these options will greatly impact my school community. And as a staff and group of parents, we are strongly opposed to losing these neighborhoods. Options 1 and 3 both have us losing all of our students from Columbia Square, Courtyard Apartments, and Tiger Village Apartments. Those are the vast majority of the housing that we have within our district of families who don't have single-family dwelling. So if all of those are gone, we have a less than 10 duplexes left that are not single-family dwelling, and it's very hard to be able to find a house in that community. I wanted to take a second just to talk about these 59 students that would be impacted. I think it's important to know who we're talking about when we look at those numbers. Of the 59, 56 are students of color. 13 are EL students from China, the Philippines, Burma, and Zimbabwe. 12 are students with IEPs. All but 3 would be considered eligible for free and reduced lunch. That means for next school year, we would go from having 37% of our students being students of color to 24%. Fairview has been working with these neighborhoods since they became Falcons in 2002. We have fought to keep them during several different boundary changes. Don't get me wrong, Russell is a phenomenal school. And I know we're standing here today to say, don't take our kids to Russell, but it's not because of what Russell is. Any kid would be lucky to attend those schools. But the work that we have done building relationships with these families and learning the ways to best support them takes time and it takes trust. And having that process start over would negatively impact these kids. If we lose these 59 students, we will be very far from the district average diversity index. We would have the lowest amount of EL students of any school that offers services. Having diversity in our building is an incredibly important part of our culture and community at Fairview, and is one of the reasons I'm proud to send my kid there. All 59 of the projected students that would be affected if options 1 or 3 were to be chosen benefit from having some consistency in their lives as much as possible. These students in particular live lives that can be less consistent than most. I want to be the voice for many of these families that don't have the privilege of advocating on their own behalf, many of which are not even aware that this is an option. These families are mostly unaware of this potential change that would greatly impact their students. Like stated at the beginning, we're aware that somewhere students need to shift. I'm here to implore you to consider alternative options that leaves these students at Fairview for their best interest. We would find ways to support these students no matter what, but our entire school community loves these children, and our school would never be the same. The theme tonight has been equitable education, and removing these students would not be equitable. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who signed up to give public comment and who did so. We will move on to the report of the board president, and we'll first start with Scholar Voice. We have a presentation from some students about fine arts, and I'll let Dr. Porter introduce them.
Thank you, President Waters. It's my honor to introduce Trina Blumberg from Hickman, Yasmin Green from Rockbridge, and August Lammers from Russell Boulevard to share with you their fine arts courses that have improved their lives and their education.
Sorry, I'm pulling up my notes. Good evening. I'm Trina Blumberg. Before I get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a senior at Hickman, and I've been lucky enough to be a part of Hickman's wind ensemble, jazz ensemble, marching band, pit orchestra, and Triumph, which, if you don't know, is a music-based service group which holds many chapters across the country. All 4 years of high school, I've been a part of these groups, and in addition, outside of school, I teach private lessons to students in the community. I teach piano and trombone. Basically, everything I do revolves around music, and tonight I'm going to speak on how CPS Fine Arts has affected myself and others within the district. I'll do this by examining what I believe to be the 3 crucial aspects of CPS Fine Arts that keep kids coming back. Number 1 is fostering relationships, 2 is forming a community, and finally 3, enriching students' education and preparing them for post-high school opportunities. The first of these 3 points being fostering relationships. CPS's dedication to promoting and growing our many fine arts programs has allowed me to meet people within Hickman, the community, and even the state that I may not have met otherwise. First, within Hickman, having a large marching band of nearly 150 people this past year has allowed me to create friendships with students from all four grade levels that I definitely would not have met if not for this opportunity. In addition, Triumph, which I already introduced, which as a music-based service group combines many different performing arts groups within the school, such as band, orchestra, and choir. And then within the community, again, in Triumph, for example, students are often actively working with our other teachers and students within the community, such as events such as the 5th grade instrument enrollment night, which we helped at this past year. And then within the state, the opportunity to audition for all state ensembles allows students to meet kids in arts programs all over the state. Next, community in CPS Fine Arts. The flourishing community that is CPS Fine Arts goes so far beyond the classroom. The relationships and bonds that students form will last a lifetime. Examining 3 aspects of this is friendships for many students who may feel as though they don't belong in a certain group when entering middle or high school. CPS's Fine Arts programs undoubtedly brings a strong sense of community to their lives, especially if they're very involved, because you'll end up spending a lot of time around students with similar interests to yourself. For me, going into high school, not being 100% sure what I wanted to do in college, CPS's fine arts opportunities quickly made me realize that I wanted to be a performance major in college. Next, mentorship. Within many of CPS's fine arts groups, there's students of all ages, allowing for some of the older students who are maybe more experienced in the arts to be role models, and these being mutually beneficial relationships due to the legacy that these younger generations will be able to carry on. Next, enrichment and preparation. Myself, I'll be attending University of Missouri, Kansas City in the fall, and I'll be majoring in trombone performance. Without the opportunities that have been presented to me at Hickman, along with the CPS Fine Arts as a whole, there's a great chance I would have chosen a completely different path, not aligned with my goals and interests. A few examples of enrichment opportunities within CPS, specifically for high school students, are district and all-state concert band and jazz band auditions, district and state solo and ensemble festivals, and possibilities of attending MMEA, which is the Missouri Music Educators Association, in January. Is that all the time I have? Oh, no. Oh, okay, sorry. I thought someone said something. My bad. Sorry about that. Okay, personally, auditions have shown me the value of consistent preparation, time management, and even how to be cool under pressure. All of these being lifelong skills that successful adults must be equipped with. In summation, CPS Fine Arts is a top-tier program when it comes to fostering relationships, forming communities, and student enrichment. Myself and so many others would not be who we are today without the consistent support of all of our CPS educators, but specifically our fine arts educators. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me the chance to come up here and speak. This is such an amazing opportunity, and nothing like this has ever happened to me before. My name is August Lamers. I'm a 5th grader at Russell Boulevard Elementary, and I'm excited to come up here and say this. CPS Performing Arts is such an amazing experience. Being able to do things like Fine Arts Explorers and Honors Choir makes you feel so invited and immersed because it's so engaging in so many things at the same time. 4th grade is a big jump in life because you have a lot more responsibilities. Meeting loads of new people at Fine Arts Explorers made it even better. The classes didn't feel like classes. They felt like adventures. I remember one time we did a project in theater class where one person turned around and people would line up to say a specific sentence. I don't remember what it was, but we would have to guess who that person was, and I think none of us got it wrong, so Miss Lauren had to stop it and we did something else. We knew each other so well, and I think about that moment a lot. I'm excited to do theater in middle school and high school. I think that when I heard it was only 2 weeks long, I was utterly devastated. When I woke up in the mornings, I would feel so disoriented, and then I would get told that it was Fine Arts Explorers. I would be like, yes, finally. When my grandmother died, that was such an emotional time for me, and being able to do things like Fine Arts Explorers gave me the energy boost I needed, because the teachers were so kind and welcoming. Thank you! That's...
Hello, I'm Yasmin Green, and I'm proud to be a band kid at Rockbridge High School. I would like to thank the board for the opportunity to share with you how my journey through the Fine Arts program has shaped me into the person I am today. Although the band program, which I am an active member in, is just one of the many wonderful fine art opportunities at Columbia Public Schools, I'm certain that the positive and influential experiences which I've been fortunate to have are represented across the entire Fine Arts program. This is also thanks to the caring nature of the fine arts faculty members. They work hard to improve the futures of their students, and without them, the program would not be possible. Although now, a day hardly passes without some form of music in my life, before elementary school, the world of musical instruments was entirely foreign to me. This all changed, however, when I was handed a plastic recorder in the music classroom. Little did I know that those initial squeaky notes marked the start of a journey. Through this small instrument and patient teachings I received, I found a voice, a means of expressing myself in a way that felt uniquely mine. Eager for more, I took up flute the following year, and from then on, music became a crucial part of my life, which I always find myself returning to. In between sessions where I dedicated myself to practice and improvement, being in the wind ensemble, marching band, and occasionally orchestra has been an immense source of joy and fulfillment for me. In these ensembles, I've learned the importance of listening to those around me and striking a balance with my fellow musicians. We each have our own strengths, and by working together, we build off of our differences. We don't just aim for technical mastery. We strive to connect with the music on a deeper level, finding personal meaning in the notes we play. Together, we work tirelessly to create music we can be proud of, fostering a sense of achievement and community which follows us throughout our other classes. Lessons I've learned extend far beyond musical technique. The challenges I faced in the Fine Arts program have taught me invaluable lessons of perseverance and hard work. By working side by side with other fine arts students, I've discovered that fostering a caring and supportive community is essential to achieving our goals, both in school and beyond. The self-expression and discipline I've cultivated through music empower me to make a positive impact in my community while approaching every endeavor with creativity and determination. In essence, the power of the Fine Arts program lies in its ability to nurture individuality while fostering a spirit of collaboration. It's about empowering students to find strength in both their own abilities and in supporting those around them. I am endlessly grateful for the opportunities the Fine Arts program has offered me, and I look forward to continuing growing as both a musician and a person. Thank you again for your time and your continuous support of fine arts in our schools. By doing so, you are changing lives and teaching lifelong lessons to students all throughout Columbia.
I want to thank Trina, Yasmin, and August for coming to talk to us about their experience in fine arts. I want to thank our Director of Fine Arts, Ms. Brianna Kavanaugh, and all of our music teachers at the high school level, the middle school level, the elementary level, band, orchestra, choir. It is amazing that we're able to do all of this wonderful work, and we're so grateful that the things that our teachers are sharing with these young kids it's helping them find who they are, and it's helping them find their spot and discover what is inside them that they love. So I think that's wonderful. Thank you. The next part of our agenda is an explanation of some current legislation. I just want to take a few minutes to make people aware of this piece of legislation that has the potential to significantly impact our community. Senate Bill 727 has been passed by the Senate, by the House Special Committee on Education Reform, and is now scheduled for an executive hearing by the Committee for Regulatory Oversight tomorrow at 4:30. If it is passed out of committee tomorrow, it could be taken up on the House floor anytime. Senate Bill 727 is an education mega bill with many provisions at an expected cost of taxpayers of $467 million. There's an increase from $50 million to $75 million in tax credits for private school vouchers, which could be used in any community in the state. The requirement of the state to fund public school transportation in exchange for offering these tax credits has been eliminated. Hundreds of millions of dollars worth of promises to public education are made in the bill, but not funded. That, however, is not the purpose of this update. The main thing I want everyone to understand about Senate Bill 727 is that it authorizes charter schools in Boone County specifically, and only Boone County. What is a charter school? It is a school funded with state and local tax dollars that is not subject to the same requirements or accountability measures as a traditional public school. Charters are not accredited and face no consequences from DESE for poor performance. Currently in Missouri, outside of Kansas City and St. Louis, a charter school can only be sponsored in a district that is unaccredited, provisionally accredited for 3 years, or approved by the local school board. None of these limiting factors would apply to Boone County charter schools under Senate Bill 727. I heard a phrase recently that keeps replaying in my mind, and it's, if you're doing something for us without us, you're doing it to us. The board is deeply concerned about the use of public tax dollars to fund a duplicate education system that has no accountability to the local taxpayer without the consent of the local taxpayer. CPS has been the hometown school district in Boone County for 150 years, and we're committed to serving with persistence and accountability so that all of our children can succeed. Next, we'll hear from Columbia, Missouri State Teachers Association President Carrie Stiff and Columbia, Missouri National Education Association President Noel Gelso.
Good evening. Good evening, President Waters, Superintendent Yearwood, members of the board, administration, and cabinet. Congratulations to Janine Snodgrass for continuing your work with CPS and new board member Alvin Cobbins. We are excited to work with you in the coming years to support the values of our families and stakeholders as well. Listen to the new ideas that you bring to the board. Welcome. Welcome back, Suzette Waters as president, and welcome John Lyman as vice president to the board. Your leadership in your new roles will be crucial as we have hard conversations about teacher retention, student achievement, and many other very important topics this year. As we continue to improve and make CPS an outstanding school that is improving student achievement and continuing to have teachers that love to be part of CPS. I'd like to take a moment and thank Ms. Karen Hayes. She has been a strong supporter of all of our students, making sure that all students and community members had a voice on the board. We appreciate the endless hours that she put forth, the passion that she has shown towards students and staff in our district, and the perspective that she brought to the board when having tough conversations. Her work is very much respected and thankful by the members of CMSTA. As we discuss the proposed charter school expansion for Boone County schools, I would like to take this time to share MSTA's position on charter schools. MSTA opposes this legislation. MSTA, being concerned that this will pass, adopted resolutions to guide legislation. These resolutions are scary. They are that they hope that the local school board with an existing accredited Missouri public school district, and provided the charter school encourages the best educators to have the same certification. Think of that. Charter schools don't have to require the same teacher certification, as well as making certain that tenure status are not reduced. Charter schools are not required to offer teachers tenure or any guarantees of employment from year to year. So as we continue to talk about this, we just wanted to share our MSTA point of view. We are excited to see the partnership with EOS to expand the opportunities for all to participate in advanced courses. Our district has had a goal and has been working on expanding our EEE program, our Gifted and Talented program, to underrepresented students. And we see this as a great step forward to ensure that all students have access to these courses. Thank you for always listening to our concerns and coming up with solutions to help our students. This next one, I have to change up a little because we got an email during this meeting. A concern that was brought to our attention is the new attendance area progress. Several teachers and parents brought it to our attention. The new option was introduced after the survey was sent out. While we are excited that option was added due to feedback at the meeting, until tonight, during this board meeting, that information was not shared with parents, that option was out there. So unless they had been out looking for it, they had not known that it was there. But we want to thank you because during this meeting, we got an email with those new updates and options to share with the community. So thank you for that. Recently, the Columbia Fund for Academic Excellence Awards were given. We want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the wonderful teachers that were honored and give a special shout out to our CMSTA members who were recognized. Amanda Kincaid at Cedar Ridge is Outstanding Elementary Teacher in grades 3 through 5, and Hannah Nodor for Outstanding Educator in a Specialized Area. CPS has the most outstanding teachers, and we want to thank all of them for all that they've done for our students. We will be announcing our Educator of the Year award winners and recognizing our retirees at an event in May, and with a time to be announced later. We hope that several of you will be able to attend again, and we'll let you know about that. Again, thank you for everything that you do for us, and welcome to our new member.
Good evening. Thank you for your impassioned commentary on Senate Bill 727. It's terrible. It needs to die in committee. Good evening. I am Noelle Gilzo, President of CMNEA, the exclusive bargaining representative for the teachers of Columbia Public Schools. As the bargaining season concludes, I want to look back at what we have done and look forward to what work we still need to do. The CMNEA and district teams have forged a 3-year collective bargaining agreement that prioritizes the recruitment and retention of quality teachers. We are happy that CPS will see a more significant pay increase than we have seen in years. You will approve the contract at your work session next week following the projected unit ratification vote, which will occur April 11th through 17th. Looking back, we can say that we worked to improve working conditions and compensation for the teachers of CPS. Looking forward, we realize there is more work to be done to keep us competitive with comparable districts. We are eager to review the salary schedule to determine if its design still meets our needs during compensation committee meetings next fall, as we consider a salary schedule that honors new hires' past teaching experience and rewards loyalty to our school district. We want to ensure that CPS can continue to attract and retain the highest quality teachers because we know that teachers are the ones who can directly impact student achievement, the district's primary goal. Looking back on this year, we are thankful to Karen Hayes for her service to our schools and our community by serving on the school board on an interim basis. She was a listener, a collaborator, and a reasoned voice. Looking forward, we welcome Jean Snodgrass back to the board and welcome Alvin Cobbins as its newest member. You join our board at a critical juncture in our community's growth as we consider attendance boundary changes and threats from the Missouri legislature. CMNEA believes every student deserves a great public school, and we know strong public school systems make strong communities. We, too, are opposed to charter school expansion and have been lobbying House committee members and the Senate. We look forward to working with you and the district to improve academic achievement and to restore our place as a model district for innovation. We also congratulate Board President Suzette Waters and Vice President John Lyman for their service and the extra responsibilities they have undertaken. Looking back on our progress over the past year, we learned that our attendance rates have improved and discipline incidents are on the decline, but academic achievement as measured by MAP and EOC scores remained pretty flat between 2022 and 2023. We want our state assessments to showcase the amazing things happening in our schools. Although the upcoming EOCs and MAP tests are high-stakes tests for the district, we recognize that powerful learning happens every day in our classrooms. Now is the time for us all to pull together to support our students' success. This means families, social groups, churches and civic organizations, teachers, educational support professionals, administrators, and you, the board. Now is not the time for bickering and infighting. We have one common purpose right now, helping all students demonstrate growth in their learning. I am reminded of the social discipline window from the Restorative Practices Handbook. When considering degree of expectation versus support, there are 4 quadrants. 3 of the quadrants are not ideal. Neglectful for low expectation, low support, punitive for high expectation, low support, or permissive for low expectation, high support. So in a classroom, neglectful looks like ignoring students, punitive looks like a teacher doing something to students, and permissive looks like a teacher doing something for students. The desired quadrant is the restorative quadrant for high expectation and high support, where teachers do something with students. As teachers, we are being trained to aspire to be in the restorative quadrant as much as possible in order to maximize student achievement. I think this model has multiple applications throughout CPS. To get the best out of our students, our teachers, our administrators, we should strive to maintain high expectations while providing high levels of support at each of these levels. Working with each other, we can achieve great things in our district. As always, I appreciate the opportunity to address the board on behalf of CMNEA. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Presidents Stith and Gilzo. We will have next a compensation update from our award-winning birthday CFO, Heather MacArthur. And returning treasurer.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys spending your time here with me tonight on my birthday. Sorry, make sure my technology works. There we go. Okay, so we are talking all about compensation tonight. We are into about the halfway point of our budget process this year. We did our budget priorities and parameters back in January, and then we talked a little bit about revenues last month, and compensation, of course, is at 80% of our operating budget, makes up the largest portion of our expenditure line items. And so compensation, again, was number one budget priority that you guys approved back in January. And then also in our budget parameters, number 3, and linked to our CSIP goal that we've all heard from several people already tonight about recruitment and retention of our employees. So the first slide that I want to go over tonight is what we call the cost to operate comparison, or step increases. Again, this doesn't include any additional improvements to existing salary schedules. This only shows how much it costs each different employee group to move down on the salary schedule for years of experience. Some of the schedules also include cells or columns that do not receive increases. For example, if you are over year 30 on the teacher salary schedule, you would not receive an additional step for experience. And so depending on placement on some schedules, individuals may not receive a step increase. But you can see here the top section of this slide that you can see on your screen shows our teacher schedule and our other salaried schedules. And then the bottom section shows our hourly or classified schedules. Just a reminder, the number 1, the school professional schedule that we have on there includes several different categories of employees, mostly that have like smaller numbers of employees, such as our parents as teachers or homeschool communicators, outreach counselors, process coordinators that make up that amount. And so they're lumped together. And then we have our principals, building administrators, our curriculum coordinators, the executive administrators. Again, that is a new schedule that we are presenting this year that includes separate schedules for our cabinet members, our directors and assistant directors, and executive directors. And then so our salaried non-scheduled then is the last line on the slide that shows our salaried employees. So you can see as you move across the screen from left to right that as we put additional money into those salary schedules, not only does it cost more to put money into it, but it also costs more to step our employees each year. Again, a reminder, the top section is our salaried, so even though the percentages are smaller, the amounts are larger. And so then the bottom half with our classified schedules, then our percentages are a little bit higher, but again, the dollar amounts are lower than the salaried sections. So all that then translates to how much does that cost. So just to cost, again, not any additional improvements to schedules, just to cost or step all of our employees each year is over $3 million. So once we add benefits, it's right under $3.4 million, $3,386,000 for the 24-25 budget. And again, that covers right around 2,800 employees in the operating fund, which is, the incidental and teachers fund together. And not all employees are impacted by those increases due to the placement on the salary schedules. So then the next piece of improvements that we want to look is the actual additional money that we're putting into those salary schedules. So these are our increases for salary schedule improvement. The salary cost only is right over $7.6 million. Again, our benefit cost adds on that because our retirement percentages, our FICA, Medicare, Social Security are based on percentages. As those dollar amounts increase, then it also is a percentage increase in those benefit costs to benefit those employees also increases. And so our total allocation for salary schedule improvements is $8.7 million. And so then there's the next slide shows then the total increases overall percentages by categories. Again, we have our step improvements in the left-hand column. The middle column there is our percentage for improvements to schedules, and then the increase over the prior year. Again, the top half, just on the first slide, the top half of the slide shows our professional or salaried schedules, and then the bottom half shows our hourly schedules. You can see there the top line is our teacher schedule. So our step increment was 2%. We have about right over a 5% increase for our schedule for a 7.13% increase. As you heard Ms. Gilzo say earlier, that is a $2,100 on the base improvement from $40,900 as a starting salary on our teacher salary schedule to a $43,000. And again, that is going, they're having their collective bargaining agreement be ratified by the unit in the next couple weeks, and we're hoping to bring that to your work session for the final CBA and the final salary schedules next week. Again, and then similar percentages within the 5 to 6% range for our other salaried schedules. Again, those school professional schedules you can see there on the bottom includes things like school psychologists, nurses, outreach counselors, parents as teachers, homeschool communicators, and process coordinators, right over 6%. Building administrators, again, right under 5%. Coordinators, executive administrators, again, the executive administrators are new schedules this year, so we have to artificially place everyone that was on a schedule before onto a schedule, so that percentage is a little higher because we had to get everyone up to a minimum salary to be on that schedule. And then our salary non-scheduled, again, looks a little bit different than it has in the past because we've taken some of those higher dollar salaries that include like the directors and the executive directors and the cabinet members off of those schedules. But again, I'm proposing a 5.2% increase for those salary non-scheduled individuals. And then the bottom half, again, you can see our instructional aides, classroom aides, paraprofessionals, technology services, custodial, grounds, and secretaries. Again, those percentages are higher, however, the dollar amounts are lower due to those individual salaries that make up those individuals that are on those lists. And so the average, again, for those salary schedules is between more in the 8 to 9% range for the hourly schedules, and that includes a $1 on the base minimum to increase that from $15 an hour to $16 an hour as our starting for all of our hourly schedules. And that again was approved in our budget parameters back in January as well as one of our goals to move for those schedules. And so you can see, again, the average increases for each salary group continues to increase as we are moving from just in the last 5 years. This slide shows the historical information from 2021 average to the 2024 projected average. You can see the teachers on the top line there for an average of about 56,000 to what we're projecting to almost 62,000 for next year as we put additional improvements into those salary schedules each year. And as you move down the schedule, you see similar results for each one of those different employee groups. This next slide shows our benefits, our health insurance, and our dental insurance. We do not project any increase because we will be in a final, again, those insurances are on a calendar year, but we'll be in the final year of our 3-year contract with UMR for our health insurance and Delta Dental. So because we're locked in for rates on those contracts, we do not project an annual increase there. But again, that's a significant increase, over $8,000 per employee that we're paying for fully board paid benefits for each of our employees. So the next couple slides then shows our total proposed FTE or additions to the 24-25 budget. And so there's several items on here that we're going to walk through. Again, I linked them back to our budget priorities as we walk through this. It's a similar presentation that we made to the Finance Committee on Wednesday. And again, all of our requests, we've been working on this since January. We start meeting with each of our building and departmental leaders one-on-one and in groups, and they give all of their requests. And so the full list that we received this year was over about $7.5 million in ads. And so we've met multiple times as a cabinet then and tried to whittle down that list to make the list that we're bringing to you for proposed FTE additions for the 24-25 budget. So the first item on the list here, we see our English language teachers. Again, we're requesting 3 FTE teachers, 2 at the elementary level, 1 at the middle school level. Again, that is linked back to was our budget priority. Well, that was approved for budget priority number 6 that talked about English language and the growing population of students that we serve in that area. Elementary classroom teachers. This is directly linked to our budget priority number 9, which is what we tried to make smaller class sizes at our title elementary schools compared to our non-title elementary schools. And so the denominator that we were using when we allocated staff resources to those buildings was different than between title and non-title. And so the result then is an increase in 8 overall FTE district-wide just for core elementary classroom teachers. Again, 8 FTE at a total amount about $500,000. Middle school classroom teachers, the same thing, as we have different class sizes matriculating through the levels for elementary, middle, and high school. We have a smaller class size in our 8th grade, our rising 9th graders that will be moving out of middle school, and a larger 5th grade size. And because of the teaming model that we use at the middle school level, that results in adding 2 FTE at multiple different middle school levels for a total of 8 FTE, and again, another about $500,000. We've talked the last several years about all the federal stimulus money and our ESSER 3 money with some of the funding that we received coming out of COVID and our instructional mentor positions. Multiple rounds of that was included on our ESSER funding, and that was a recommendation coming out of the curriculum audit that we maintain those positions, and that's important to be able to train up our teachers, as we talked about earlier tonight as well. Again, there's 10 positions that we're going to absorb from federal funding onto district funding going forward, and so that's about an $875,000 budget a district on district dollars next year. Counselors also, again, from ESSER funding with a budget priority focusing on social emotional to maintain those additional 4 counselors at some of our highest needs schools at a price tag of about $250,000. Our high school level, we had not had instructional mentors previously, and as we continue to take those recommendations from our curriculum audit and to be able to give that additional on-the-job training and professional development for those teachers, we're adding an additional instructional mentor at the high school level at all 3 of our comprehensive high schools, and so that's a total of 3 FTE for a dollar amount of about $225,000. The nature school is completing its construction this spring, and so we're going to have our 5th grade scholars going out to the nature school next spring. And last month we approved some ARPA funding in coordination with the City of Columbia for a grant that's going to fund some of those positions. Again, this is our budget priority with our enrichment and elective opportunities for children, so an additional 3 positions there for $187,500. The alternative school staffing, again, this was also one of our budget priorities, and number 4, to add additional 3 staffing. We're going to take the 2 additional staffing that we have at our ACE or at our Boys and Girls Club location, which is currently 1 salary person and 1 hourly person, and we're going to split that into 2 different locations so that we can support both elementary and secondary scholars. And so we'll have an additional 3 FTE, but 2 of them will be salaried and 1 of them will be hourly. And so we'll have 2 different locations, 2 salaried individuals with 1 aide for secondary and 1 salaried with 1 aide at our elementary location. And then Battle High School is getting, as you'll see later tonight as we look at our capital projects, is getting a renovation of their weight room and their wrestling room. And so this will add additional opportunities for those scholars at Battle High School that were not there before. So as it opens up additional for strength training and those type classes, we'll need additional FTE to teach those classes that were not there. So we are adding additional PE, health, and science at Battle High School. And then a learning specialist, which is our budget priority number 5, as we have additional numbers in our early childhood special education that's matriculating then into our K-12 for districts learning specialists, 1 additional FTE. And so the total FTE just on this slide only is 45 for right over $3 million. On the next slide, we show the first item on the top of here shows virtual education counselor. Again, this also relates back to our social, emotional, and health of our scholars, and due to the lack of engagement, we'll talk a little bit about this in our CSIP presentation coming up after this presentation. There's currently over 700 scholars in our online program, which is larger than even our largest elementary school right now. And so we would like to propose that we're adding an additional counselor to help online with the poor academic achievement, and to make sure that we have counselors be requested to check in to help both with social, emotional, and academic results of the scholars that are online. Gifted teacher. Again, we also heard some about this tonight. We want to make sure that we are making sure those caseloads are reasonable, and currently the caseloads at the secondary level, especially at Rockbridge and Hickman High School, currently have over 250 students per teacher, which is way over the DESE recommended average, and we're trying to, again, get additional underrepresented populations in our gifted program. And so to be able to make sure that we meet the additional students in that program, we're adding an additional 1 FTE that would be split between Hickman and Rockbridge High School. High school, the BSSA is our security, safety and security individuals, that as we move toward our new open gate weapons detection system, we were requesting an additional security person at each one of our comprehensive high schools to be able to help with those systems. Jefferson Middle School, this is an administrative assistant, which is similar to a assistant principal, but to help with admin duties and behavior support at that school. New Haven and Grant assistant principal. New Haven's one of our only, as our title school, that does not currently have an assistant principal, and so we're proposing a 3-2 split between New Haven and Grant for an additional administrator, 1 additional FTE, about $100,000 for that request. And then the next several line items are related to human resources. Again, that was our budget priority number 11, a human resources recruitment specialist to help with recruitment and retention. We currently have a recruiter, but she also shares some clerical duties, and so we want a specialist to help and split those duties. And then we are moving the assistant director that currently handles all of our classified individuals from an assistant director to a director. Again, not an FTE add, just a change in duties. And then a compliance investigator to support both HR and community relations with paralegal type investigation work for that line. And then our recovery room instructional aid, which will help with behavior. And we are piloting that program we've had multiple requests at the elementary and middle school and high school level to have salaried individuals for consistency in the behavior recovery rooms, or ISS rooms, at the secondary level. And so we're piloting it. Those are at our higher need schools for next year to see how that works. But because of the dollar impact, we're not proposing to go district wide with that yet, but to see how it works at some of our higher needs buildings first. And then the addition of 1 homeschool communicator, again, the split between Russell and Midway, to help with the change in population with the redistricting that we're expecting at Russell Boulevard especially, and with the additional needs out at Midway with their homeless population out there. And then final slide here, we have our operations item with technology services. We go increasingly more data protection and cyber issues. So we're proposing an additional FTE for a data protection officer for our technology services department. We have a couple elementary schools that still do not have full-time health secretaries, so we're proposing 2 additional FTE to be used by our Director of Health Services to make sure that we have full-time individuals at those schools. Parent educator, again, this is funded by the state. We do not currently have enough staffing in our Parents as Teachers programs to be able to even do the number of visits that we could get our full state allocation for funding. And so we're increasing that by 1 additional FTE. And it also meets our budget parameter. It has to do with early childhood. a multicultural secretary. This is an additional FTE to be able to help support some of the equity departments, specifically the MAC Scholars and Student Services currently share one clerical person, and so we'd like to split that so they each have a full-time person as they are located in different buildings and serve different needs, to be able to make sure have one person to meet all those needs. And then the next two, we've done something similar at Darby Ridge Elementary in previous years, where we have a high number of non-tenured teachers at some of our high-level title schools. So with Battle Elementary and Alpha Hart Elementary, there's been requests to increase the admin assistant, again, not an additional person, but change the administrative assistant role to an assistant principal role so that there's more consistency and help and able to do evaluations of non-tenured teachers. And then special services, we're requesting an increase, again, not an additional FTE, but a change in job duties and the organizational structure from a director to executive director. Because as we did the reorganization last year, there was executive director positions were created that had directors reporting to them, and the director of special services currently has another director underneath, and so we're proposing to move that to an executive director position. Beulah Ralph is we're requesting a behavior instructional aid for the recovery room there as a changing demographics at that school. We are requesting additional mentor stipends for teachers, and then MISHA, our Missouri State High School Athletics Association, is adding stunt and boys volleyball to our sports next year, and so we're proposing adding that at Columbia as well to add coaching stipends as well as additional service and supply budgets to be able to support those two new sports. It's about $100,000. So our total proposed FTE additions is 62, and the dollar amount that equates to is right over $4.5 million. And so the summary of all the additional money that we are proposing tonight for our compensation, recommending salary and benefit increases as well as FTE increases to the 24-25 budget. Again, steps, increased salaries and benefits for experience, $3.3 million. Increased salaries and benefits for improvements to schedules of right under $8.8 million. Allowance for salary and benefit improvements for educational credit. Again, that's to move across columns rather than to move down for those who earn additional degrees, right under $300,000. We do have some savings each year from retirees and resignations as we hire new individuals. Proposed FTE additions of right over $4.5 million. And so the total recommended increases for the 24-25 operating budget are $16,657,466. So that's significant. As we look again in the final steps of the budget process, then how is this additional money that we are putting into our employees, into our salaries and into our additional people, how does that impact our 5-year model? And so the final slide we always like to end with is the 5-year model and how that looks going forward. And so you can see we talked about we did have additional revenue. We talked about that out of the gate this year with assessed valuation, and that we would make sure that we were putting that additional recurring revenue that we had from our property taxes back into our people. And you can see that those raises are significant, not only in our additional improvements for salary schedules, but also in additional positions to help support our scholars. So our 5-year model here includes conservative increases going forward for assessed valuation annually. We're also receiving increases in state funding for the proposed increases for the state adequacy target for the 25 and 26 school year. Again, we talked about legislation that might jeopardize that in the future, but at least we know for the next school year that we're having additional money put into the state foundation formula for the first time in 5 years. We have flat federal funding. Again, step improvements for all of our employees are included in this. Additional funding for improvements for salary schedules for the 24-25, 25-26, and 26-27 school years. We also have funding for the opening of new schools and reorganization, and also one-time needs for FF&E costs as we put additional furniture, fixtures, and equipments into the new buildings with the Career Center, the Battle Elementary coming online, and then the new elementary school coming online in the fall of 26 for the 26-27 school year. We have continued funding of full district paid benefits for all years for our employees. And then we also have funding for the projected increase in our contracted for transportation expense based on the new contract pricing that you approved back in March with DNS. And so that is starting in year 25, 26 and beyond. And again, there is going to be some impact for future legislation that may negatively affect revenue going forward, but as we're continuing to watch some of those items move through the legislature. But you can see in the 28, 29 and the 5-year model, we do meet what is in our CSIP and our goal number 1, that we have 3 months of fund balance on reserve in our 5-year model, which is presented here tonight. So that is all I have for you guys. I'm willing to take questions.
So the way we do questions, just to remind everyone and to let Mr. Cobbins know, if your first question, you hold up the green card, and then if someone has a second comment, they would hold up the orange card, and that way we can ensure that everyone gets a first pass before we go on to someone's second comment. So feel free to use your cards anytime you would like. Does anybody have a question for Ms. MacArthur? Ms. Farrow?
I can never get that to work. I have a couple of questions. The amount, so for the our slides with our proposed FTE changes, these amounts are ideally they wouldn't exceed that because.
Right, they're averages.
Okay.
So similar to like the average teacher salary, again, some may be less, some may be more, but it's more of a middle of the road type for each one of those positions.
And then with the alternative school staffing, can you repeat that again, what you were saying?
Yes, and we had this conversation at cabinet this morning, so if I need to phone a friend, I might have to have Carla come up to, but I'm going to explain it from my financial mindset, but our programmatic people might be able to help me as well. So currently, we really only have ACE, which is our suspension center at the Boys and Girls Club. We currently have 1 salary person and 1 hourly person at that location. We are going to add an elementary site, which will probably remain at Boys and Girls Club, and we will have a different site to be determined for our secondary. And so we will have an additional, we'll have those 2 people that already exist plus an additional 3, so we'll have 2 salaried people and 1 hourly person for secondary, and then 1 salaried, 1 hourly person for elementary. So a total of 5, but 2 already exist, and so that's why we're requesting 3 additional FTE.
All right, are we anticipating needing any administrator to run the alternative school, or we haven't gotten that far yet?
It should be in one of our existing buildings, and so it will be under the Student Services Department, but also we'll have a building administrator based on wherever we decide for that location.
Okay, gotcha. And then, I'm sorry, I have one more question. Because I had trouble hearing at the finance meeting the other day. The multicultural secretary, right now, there's a secretary that does work for MAC Scholars and does work for Student Services. Student support. But those places are located those are different locations. So ideally, this would create, one of them would have 1 secretary and one of them would have their own secretary. Is that what I understand?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thank you, Ms. MacArthur. Well done for your birthday presentation. And we'll move on
You'll
to...
hear from me a lot more tonight for the birthday festivities.
The night is young. We'll next have our CSIP update with Dr. Yearwood.
Sure.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I meant to, as you set up, I just wanted to, the number of positions that we're approving, several of those are new. So I just wanted to confirm that the board is going to get job descriptions for any position that is new prior to that coming to us. And thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, President Waters, Board of Education. In our CSIP update, I always like to start as a reminder that our intention this year is to inspire greatness with intentionality. How can we get to another level, higher level, increase our academic outcomes and so on. And I always go back to why, because this is what we said as a district, as a community, that we want to be the best in the state through providing the best education for all students. I always come back to the values. As we look at what values we are supposed to be embracing as a district, we talk about trust, integrity, collaboration, transparency, empathy, and grace. And we have to keep reminding ourselves about these because, again, these lend itself to us having greater sort of camaraderie behind, again, our mission and our vision. So again, I just wanted to continue to bring this, especially as we talk about building trust, where individuals can take risk in terms of it's okay if we try something different to try to improve, academic environment. If it doesn't work, then we pivot, and so on, and be able to trust that initiative isn't going to be seen as a downer, but more as, okay, we are always going to try to refine what we're doing. And then we have, of course, integrity, being able to, trust that whatever we say, whatever we do, it really starts addressing our vision and mission. Collaboration, us working together as one CPS family. It's important. Transparency, not being afraid to show that, hey, I don't know, I'm learning. Having that transparency, and of course, empathy and grace, very, very critical. We must be able to understand when others are expressing a difference of opinions or, maybe having a bit of critique in what we're doing, being able to have that empathy. And of course, the grace comes in as very important as we try to uplift each other, giving each other grace, giving each other opportunities to make mistakes. So, we talked about how all of this has developed. We talked about the funnel that started with a vision, mission, went through our CSIP goals, focus areas, and of course, we continue to work on our milestones within our divisions so that we can accomplish the goals set forth. And of course, these were our goals for this year, our focus areas really. Creating high expectations, improving core instruction, implementing the district's instructional framework. And again, some of this will continue because, again, for example, our instructional framework is being revised this year with input from all. And I call it the foundation behind what we do. Everything should revolve around our strategic plan. This is the roadmap that we said. This was done with the collaboration, again, of our parents, community, input from our staff, even board members, or teachers and so on. And we're saying that these are the steps that we need to take to experience that level of success. So the CSIP, the Continuous School Improvement Plan, will always be the driving force, the engine that we revolve around to be able to carry our district forward for the next 5 years. So with that said, we'll talk about Scholars Online, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Moore. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the commitments we made at the beginning of this year was to make sure that we were bringing regular updates. We have updates from our building principals through our principal-led data days, but our buildings aren't the only thing that we have working. And so we equally want to make sure that we provide a space because we have students all over our district that we have to recognize and we have to have conversations about their performance as well. One of those programs that we have is our online program. And so when we talk about CPS Online, we have, as you heard earlier, over 700 students who are participating in our online education. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Beth Winton, the district administrator over online programming, to talk a little bit about the progress that is happening for our students and the things that we're putting in place to support them along the way.
Hello. Good to see you all. I appreciate the opportunity to present about our scholars who are accessing content online. I was asked to give a brief update. I'll try to be brief. You have quite a full agenda, and there's a good basketball game on soon. So for the 23-24 school year, it is my honor to have taken over the responsibilities for the CPS online program. I'm thrilled to be here, serving our scholars and serving the parents and community members who love them. For 23-24, we had 932 individual students taking about 2,500 individual courses and 10 elementary students who are enrolled full-time online through the Springfield Launch Program. For the spring semester, on screen there are 746 total secondary students. and the breakdown is presented for you. Of the 65 middle school students, most of them are enrolled in one online course. Most of those online courses are 8th graders taking an accelerated English course. As an elective, they have an opportunity to enroll in a high school English elective. And 21 of those students are enrolled in 4 more online courses. It's not an exact science, but 4 online courses seems to be the breaking point at which the student is no longer coming into the building. So we can describe them as full-time online. Of the 681 high school students, most of them are taking one course, and you can see the assortment of courses thereof. So I would describe about 90 of our CPS scholars I would describe as full-time online. There are engagement requirements which were implemented this semester that requiring students make adequate progress or return in person to get the support that they need if they weren't making adequate progress. I've been thrilled with the support of the principals and counselors and teachers in the building who want to see our scholars learn as much as they can. It takes a certain level of skill, some self-determination, some executive function, some organization to be successful in an asynchronous class, for which all CPS online classes are asynchronous. And we want to make sure that scholars who need the additional support have the opportunity to come back in person. CPS Online is not the only mechanism by which students can access content online, but the majority of our students who are accessing content online are with CPS Online. Be happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Sproul.
Is there ever a topic I don't have a question about?
Hi.
Hi. CPS Online, that includes like Edgenuity and some of those things that we use as well, or is CPS Online just courses that CPS has created in?
So yes and yes. The platform on which the content lives is either Edgenuity, which we pay for through third party, or Schoology, which obviously is accessible to everybody. You can have a CPS Online class that lives in Edgenuity, and you can have a CPS Online class that lives in Schoology.
Okay.
Mr. Lyman.
I think I get the emails and stuff, even though I don't think I have any kids about, in the online thing about the engagement thing. So
Yep, that's me.
yeah, so I think that's a good idea to keep doing that. With that in mind, though, attendance-wise, how is that going?
So the courses are asynchronous. We automatically get 94% of their attendance for their participation. The students who were not engaging, there were 2 engagement benchmarks through the course of the spring semester. Students who are not engaging at the first benchmark were brought back in person. Students who met that first engagement benchmark but not the second were brought back in person. So ideally, the students who are currently enrolled in their CPS Online class are learning adequately, making progress as we would expect.
So it's pretty limited in terms of like you miss a day or you miss one of those engagement opportunities and it's time to come back to school sort of thing.
So we're trying to balance the advantages of an asynchronous online platform, which gives kids the opportunity to work at their own pace, work ahead when they have time, not work every day if things get busy, with expecting them to learn and grow and demonstrate mastery of the standards. So trying to find that balance. Implemented the 2 engagement benchmarks for this spring, and then we'll see what we think about that going forward, if that needs to be adjusted. I'm taking up too much time already.
No, and then
Okay,
this may be where you're going, but how does that impact our average daily attendance, et cetera? It's not taken into account.
So it's not impacting that. But one of the things that we notice, right, is, and this is why we made the proposal for having a counselor that can connect with our online students. That engagement component is, we recognize is lacking a human touch. And so when we say, hey, we want all of our scholars to have the opportunity to be successful in the method of learning for them, they've chosen to be on the online platform, we still want to make sure that we provide them with that touch point of a human being through that counselor who can then support us prior to the 2 missed engagement opportunities. And so while we do navigate that from a 94% attendance rate, we still understand and recognize the importance behind having a human being make connection with our students, even if you are in a virtual platform. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that reasoning behind the FTE requests.
And Mr. Cobbins, you'll want to push the button really hard.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. There it is. Yeah. There you push it like you mean it. Okay, thank you. I think you pretty much kind of answered the question, because it was, what is the makeup of the students that are online, and how do they get that opportunity?
So there's a wide variety of students who choose to access some of their content online, and the majority of students are taking a course here or there. Some students use it to get ahead. For example, if you wanted to get ahead in the math sequence, you'd have to take a course ahead of our regular opportunity. Some students might be struggling with personal issues, anxiety issues in their family, and would prefer the opportunity to be at home in a smaller setting. Some students have health issues that takes a lot of time out of school to address, and so they have an opportunity to continue their studies online. Lots of students, so that's in the CPS online world. We have students who are accessing their credit recovery content online as well, and that all of that lives on the Edgenuity platform. So there's a variety of reasons why students might choose to access their content online. We want to make it available so they can take full advantage of the flexibility, but also having some safeguards to make sure that they're actually learning what we want them to learn.
Follow up?
Coming in?
Okay, yeah, are we keeping up with the data, at the progress, so that we can use that to see where we are and where we're going?
Yes, sir. I'm very data-driven and spent the fall semester learning about the program and gathering lots of data to try to make decisions about anything that needed to be implemented, what I thought was the appropriate engagement benchmarks. I want to maintain the flexibility inherent within the asynchronous system while also trying to have guardrails to support student learning. And I've had great partners within the district, principals, leadership, counselors. They've been really supportive in this progress, and I am still learning. I've been here 8 months, but hope to continue to look at the data and make appropriate changes.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be your first question as a board member.
Mr. Willoughby.
Dr. White, and it just sounds like everything that you're sharing, and this is me just kind of summarizing kind of how you were answering Mr. Cobbins, is just that it seems that in the process of a student getting to that option and finally moving into CPS Online, it really does come into a large conversation around the staff, the student, and the family around what will be best and what are those options that exist there. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We are required by state law to make it available. Students, we don't have to offer the full breadth of CPS online courses. We could send them all to MOCAP because the state offers the opportunity. There's an advantage to having CPS students with CPS teachers. So even if they're the small percentage of students who are what I would call full-time online, not coming into the building, they're still in the district. They live in the district. They can come into the building, talk to the teacher. They can Zoom at any point in time, pick up the phone. They can come in, talk to their counselor. Their teacher's not in Springfield. No offense to Springfield, but right, their teacher's here. And there's some advantage that, right, this is our community and we want to support our kids.
Yeah, it is hard. I just want to make sure I understand the numbers. Do these numbers include the students who are put online for discipline reasons, or are these only the voluntary students?
So it depends what type of content they're accessing. Some students who are put online for disciplinary reasons are part of CPS Online. Mm-hmm. That's mostly due to timing. We don't want to put a student in the middle of a semester-long course in the middle of October, right? They've already missed half of the time frame. So it's possible that students who were transferred online for disciplinary reasons are part of CPS Online. If they are also credit deficient, they might be taking credit recovery classes, which are also, they also live in Edgenuity, but they are asynchronous and separate from CPS Online. So these numbers don't reflect students who are taking credit recovery classes, which is accessed online, or Mo Options, or the students who are at JJC or the Yes Academy who also access their courses online, but not through CPS Online.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Winton.
Thank you very much.
And I happen to know that even though you've been doing this job full-time, you are still doing your old job, which
I
is to
am.
be the coordinator of secondary gifted education.
Also
so
true.
Here we have a woman who wears many hats, and we thank
support
you.
all students in the district and their learning.
Literally. You literally are. Thank you.
All right. Staying consistent. We know we have our online programming, but we also have programming that exists for our special education population as well. And so we wanted to make sure that we had that opportunity to provide the update. And so I will invite Elise Monsees to come up, our Director of Special Education, to talk about our High Road School of Boone County.
Hi, Elise Monsees, Director of Special Education. Thanks for the opportunity to talk briefly about our partnership with High Road of School of Boone County. So we, in 2015 is when we started the partnership with High Road. So that was the first year that students in Columbia Public Schools attended the High Road School of Boone County. So I believe that our first year, while I was not in this position, I was an admin, and I believe we had about 8 to 10 students who initially started. And so that was our initial year. So some questions have been asked about what's the criteria that we would have a student go to the High Road, to go to the High Road School of Boone County. And really, it's just such an individual decision. As you know, an IEP is an individualized education plan. So I can kind of sum it up a little bit in tiers of support that we use for all of our students in Columbia Public Schools. So special education is a continuum. And so when you hear things like least restrictive to more restrictive, we have tiers of support, and so we always want to start with what's that least restrictive environment? How can we have that student be very inclusive in their environment, as much time as possible with their general education peers? But when students struggle and their services need to increase, we always are going to try that within their home building. But as those continued tiers of support, and I will tell you that our document that we use is about 4 pages long. So, I'm happy to share that anytime, but we work through what are the supports that we have put in place for the student? Have we increased their services? Have we done a function-based assessment? Have we created a BIP or a behavior intervention plan? Does that BIP work? If that BIP does not work, have we revised it? Have we added additional supports? There are a number of things that I can go on about how we move through those different tiers of support. So when a student continues to struggle through those various tiers of support, that is when teams are starting to determine, is the student not being successful in their placement? And how do we need to move across the continuum? So that's how we move from that more least restrictive, where it may be more time in that general education setting, to a more restrictive placement. And it is moving really through the tiers. A student may move from spending, they're in our placement considerations, and I know that you do not have a background in special ed, so I'm going to try to say this in lay terms as well as I can. We always want to start with the student being more than 80% in the general education setting. But as we move through those tiers of support, we need to move to that 40 to 79%. If they continue to struggle, then we move to that less than 40%. We are always looking for where is that student getting FAPE? What is that placement that's right for that student? Sometimes that is not enough for a student. They need more support. They need a higher adult to student ratio. They need a smaller setting. Maybe it's one of our district-wide classrooms in one of our schools. Those are all the things that we will continue to try as we move through those tiers of support. But sometimes students still continue to struggle. We may try our public separate day program, which is our Bethel and Rosetta buildings. However, there are students that do need even more intensive support, and that is where we have been lucky to have High Road as a partner. Currently, We have 17 students, 17 CPS students are at High Road. And I'm gonna go back up to the, well, actually, let me talk about the students, and then I'm gonna hop back up to those success metrics and the transition. So 17 of our students are currently at High Road. They are, and you will see that below that are 40 students that over the years of this partnership, what some of the statistics for those students have been. So we've had 40 students that have been at High Road. 12 of them have graduated from, they are a CPS graduate. However, they have remained at High Road through their 12th grade year or potentially when they turn 21 and aged out. As you can see, I don't have to read everything to you, but we've had some students have moved out of our district, and then 6 of our students have returned to our CPS campuses. So whenever that says CPS, it should say CPS campus, because they're still our students, but they've returned to one of our campuses. That could be that they've returned to a public separate day program. It could be that they return back to the Bethel or the Rosetta building. It could be that they return directly to a campus. We just recently had a student who transitioned directly back to one of our high schools and not into a program. So that's very exciting when those things, when those successes happen. So some of the questions that were posed were, how do we know that a student is, what is that success metric for them to return to a CPS campus? So some of the things, obviously, that we're looking for are what are their progress towards goals? Because as we know, an IEP has individualized goals, and how are those students progressing towards goals? One of the things that at High Road, their ratio right now is about 1 to 1. So they have about 40 students in the building, and they have over 40 staff. So their ratio is nearly over 1 to 1, really. So one of the things that they're always looking for students and their success is, what is the level of prompting that it takes from an adult? Because we know that when that student returns to a CPS campus, we want them to be able to do tasks independently. We want them to be able to not rely on an adult for constant prompting. So that's something that they're always working on, is how is that student completing individualized tasks, doing their work, doing those academic tasks, and increasing their own independence. Also, one of the things that is a reality of our students that are at the High Road School is there is physical aggression, and so students they have exhibited that in the past, and so that's something that is a part of that consideration too. Is how are they? Has that aggression decreased? Have the physical holds, have those decreased as well? So there's a number of factors that we take into consideration as we're thinking about that student to return to a CPS campus. Okay, and then lastly, about our expenditures and our placement rate. So it was asked as far as the use of High Road, and I answered it based on the use of actually High Road, and because being in Columbia, most of the students that utilize the High Road School are from our area. They are going to be from surrounding districts of Columbia. So Columbia Public Schools does have more students there than other districts because we are the largest district in the area. Then our expenditures, so you will see that from 2021, what we had spent, or what our expenditures were, and then you will see what our expenditures were through the end of February, and then what is our projected through the end of the school year. Okay, any questions?
Ms. Burrow.
You talked, I don't have the slide up, talked about looking at progress of the students. How often does your department get progress reports on the students that are there?
So I think that comes in a couple of different ways. There obviously are progress reports that are required through an IEP that have to be provided to students. And so Their IEPs are ours. So we have access to them at all times. But the director of High Road and we meet on a monthly basis to talk about students. We talk about, and of course, if there's things that come up in between, we always have conversations. But that is kind of our ongoing communication. So do you feel like that answers, or is there?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. And I think you might have answered my next question, which was how often do we do site visits? But it sounds like you might perhaps meet with her there. Sometimes.
Well, we sometimes meet over Zoom, kind of depends on our schedules. But my assistant director, Leanne, and I, we go out to our buildings often. And so, yes, we do make visits, on-site visits.
Okay, thanks.
And we would absolutely welcome any of board members who would like to visit at High Road. And I know High Road would also like that.
Thank you.
Mr. Cobbins?
Push the button. Okay. My question is, do you oftentimes have, or do you have some students who are only capable to reach certain levels? And I thought I heard you say that those criteria were set by you, right? I mean, what I'm getting at is that some students can't, once they reach a certain level, that's kind of it. How is that determination made?
Do you mean academically?
Academically,
Okay.
yes.
So we obviously serve students that have varying cognitive levels and academic levels. So we would never think that a student has reached their potential. There's always goals that we can reach, that we can always be working on. So I guess that my answer would be no, we don't. We don't ever have kind of a plateau for a student. When I'm not saying that students don't get to a point sometimes where they've kind of plateaued on some progress, but then we just have to look at what do we need to do differently, or maybe we need to adjust, and instead of going on this path, let's take this path. So I would say that all of our educators, including High Road, would never say that a student has kind of reached their maximum.
Okay, thank you. Good.
I think, was it August that we redid this contract? So I had a lot of questions and things then, and I still have a lot of questions about High Road. I guess it's good that a place like this exists. It's unfortunate that a place like this exists. My question is, what would the district need to do to not need to rely on High Road anymore? I mean, we're spending $1 million and a half dollars, a year, and I can't help but to think that there is something that we could do administratively within the district to keep all of those students in, at Bethel, at Rosetta, in a district classroom, in our classrooms, with the regular population 40% of the time, et cetera.
Yeah, I think very, very good question. Very difficult one to answer. And I say that because it would take a significant amount of collaboration. It would take a significant amount of financials and some strategic planning as to how can we accomplish it. I think whenever we're talking about large-scale change, comes time and a lot of collaboration, thought partnerships, critical friends, communities, voice and feedback. And so to answer that question concrete would be extremely difficult at this moment, but I think it can be an ongoing conversation as to what that would consist of and how we would approach it.
Definitely not a one-year plan.
Yeah, no.
Sort of thing. What incentive then does High Road have to move students out of their program?
I think I can answer that. So I have a good relationship, obviously, with the partnership with High Road. And so I certainly would welcome the conversation with the High Road staff. But the answer that I will give to that is they're in special education. Their goal is always the student's least restrictive environment. They want students to make success, and they want students to return to their campuses. there are students that we have referred as a district, and High Road has said they're not really appropriate. And what you're doing in CPS, you just need to keep doing. So I don't want there to be an idea of that it is how many students can we take in, because there are students that we've referred that have not been appropriate, and High Road has let us know that. We are always having conversations about when the students get to that time when we can talk about that transition, how can we start that transition? And it is a very slow transition. We do not ever want to do a cold turkey to a student. One day you're here and the next day you're there. So we work very collaboratively and, we work in collaboration, and it can take as much as 6 to 8 months that we are transitioning a student, because that's what's best for the student.
I'm correct in thinking that when we're sending students to High Roads, it is a collaborative thing between their family, the IEP team, et cetera, and saying, hey, this is kind of the next option sort of thing. It's never particularly a situation where CPS is like, this is where you're going to go, and there's no involvement from the family. It's always a collaborative thing.
Correct.
And so I would assume then it is a collaborative thing to move them out of.
Absolutely. I will say that we have had parents in the past that whenever we have talked about our transition back to CPS, because they have experienced a lot of trauma in our buildings, because they have not had great situations and experiences, they have not been interested in returning to our campuses. And so the families, the 17 families that are being served right now at High Road are very happy to be there.
Mr. Harper.
John actually asked the question that I was going to ask about what the district would need to do, but I do have a follow-up question from that. So knowing that this started in 2015, can you, to give me context, tell me where the students who either are or were in High Roads went before 2015?
So I know, I can give you a couple of, I think of one that comes to mind. I was a process coordinator, and at the time it was called, I think it was CORE, what is now Bethel, our Bethel building. And I was the process coordinator, and we had, I'll never forget the phone call that I made to a parent whose child had been on homebound for about 3 years. The student was, I believe, about 14 or 15 years old at the time. And we had decided we were going to have this partnership with High Road of Boone County. And this, we had tried. We had tried to bring this student back for an hour, and it just was not a success. So the student remained on homebound for 2 to 3 years. And when I was able to call that parent and say, your child is going to go to school all day long for 7 hours, and you can now have a job, and your child will go to school just like their same age peers, that parent cried because they had not experienced that for years. So while I can't speak to every single one of them, many of those students were either on modified day, so they were attending school for an hour a day, 2 hours a day. Many of the students were on homebound, so they were not even attending school. So while I can't speak to every single one of them what they were doing, I do know that was what many of them were, that was their school experience.
And prior to 2015, did we have any students in out-of-county private placements like this?
We did not. I believe that, well, no, I'm going to be honest. As far as I know, because I was not in this position at the time, I do not believe that we did.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
And now we will turn it over to the lovely Carla London.
I didn't pay him, I promise. Good evening. So as noted on the side there, the data that we have, we give you an attendance update every month. This is as of April 3rd. So you see that was at 79.8%. We are creeping back up. As of Monday, we were at 79. Today, we're at 79.9%. So we're going back up in the post-spring break hopefully great direction here, and still really, really pushing hard to ensure that every single one of our scholars is in school every single day for the rest of this year. So some of the things that we're continuing to do is our homeschool communicators. I joked this morning, might need to start paying rent at some of our families' homes because they're there so often to say, what can we do to help get your kiddos back to school? What is some way that we might be of assistance? Additionally, we are doing radio announcements. We have print work. We have on our website just the continued stress for our kiddos to be in attendance at school. So we really, really need the assistance of our parents and guardians and community just to remind our families that really with that 17 days that a scholar misses, that would still keep them at 90%. So our scholars that are struggling are missing way more than the 17 days. And so we really need our family's support to ensure that we finish the year strong. I know that the board had requested some information on bullying, and so I'm going to take you through a series of slides here and try to stay at a reasonable amount of time here, but just sort of walk you through how it's handled here in Columbia Public Schools. So this state statute that was adopted back in 2016, I won't read it to you, but did want to highlight just a couple of things that stand out there. First, notice that the behavior has to be repetitive or substantially likely to be repeated. So that's one of the things that we look at when we look at, is it falling under the legal definition or the statute of bullying? It has to cause interference in the academic performance or operation of the school. And then additionally, the statute was bolstered to include cyberbullying, and they added that definition at the bottom with the increased use of cell phones, texting, those types of things. So what does the process look like in Columbia Public Schools? With that statute now in place, we revised our policy JFCF to include the information on cyberbullying, as well as created a direct link from our district website, which encompassed a process by which anyone could submit a bullying report at any time. This was a really key step for us because we know that sometimes scholars will go home in the evening or on the weekend and share that something has happened, and so we needed a mechanism by which their parents could immediately go in and submit a report. So once someone fills out that online bullying report, then it goes directly to the building principal's email with that red high priority mark next to it so that the principal gets that right away. The principal then, or someone who's part of their identified team, and each building was asked to identify a team of investigators, if you will, so that could be an assistant principal, a dean, homeschool communicator, counselor. They have 2 school days to begin the investigation and 10 school days to wrap up the investigation. And then those reports are all submitted to me so that I have record of those. So again, this was really important as well because sometimes people think as the anti-bullying coordinator for the district that I investigate all of the bullying reports. The schools were deemed to be the best place to conduct those investigations because they have more intimate knowledge of the individual scholars, and so they were asked to create a team back in 2016 that would actually do the investigation. If it's determined that some additional investigation is needed or there's some questions about the investigation, then I will either follow up and do some additional investigating myself, or at times we've had our attorneys actually do some investigating. So as you look at the terms there, after the investigative process, substantiated or unsubstantiated. So substantiated just basically means that we did find enough evidence to say that bullying did occur. Unsubstantiated obviously means that we did not have enough evidence to support that bullying occurred. However, I'll talk a little bit more about what that means for us. So it's really important to note that even if a case is substantiated, there may be multiple methods by which that's handled. It could be something from a restorative conversation to an out-of-school suspension, to a law enforcement referral. So there's multiple layers there on that continuum. It could be a change in school placement even. Likewise, in situations where bullying is unsubstantiated, that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't a consequence. That could mean that there are two peers that were not getting along. There wasn't enough to substantiate bullying, but they really need to be in different classrooms. There needs to be a recess zone or something like that that the kids stay in. So again, really important with regard to restorative conversations. They are part of the process. They are not the full consequence most of the time, okay? I'm hoping that this link will work, and right as Noelle left her seat there, so we'll see how this goes. But I just wanted to show you on our website what this takes you to. Yay. I may never get back to the other one, but that's okay. So if you go to our website and even just put in bullying, if you were just on the CPS homepage, this takes you to some information about bullying reporting. This takes you to our policy, that JFCF that I referenced. And then we have an FAQ that we created right when we revised this policy, and just sort of goes through some things that what can parents do, what can they tell their child about bullying, what can they do if someone is bullying their child, and then what happens if their child is accused of actually being the bully. What do we do as a district to ensure that all students are treated fairly? So you'll notice also on that page that we have a You Matter curriculum, a district that, which is our positive, healthy campaign that the schools also teach. So I'm going to try to see if I can get back. And then over here, the last one there is, this is the actual online bullying report. You'll notice there that it is in multiple languages at the top. And this is where the parent can go in and say, I may just know the first names of the students based on what my child is telling me. And so they put in all that information, and that's what goes to the principal. So you heard me talk a minute ago about substantiated and unsubstantiated. Many times there will be 5 or 6 names on this report. And then after the principal digs in, they'll find out that maybe 2 of the students were actually involved in bullying and the others weren't. And so that also dictates, obviously, what consequences we have. Okay. Noelle, how do I get back to... Am I here? Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, so we put this in bold at the bottom here. Bullying is not tolerated. Really, every single report that comes in is thoroughly investigated, and then the outcome is based on what we find in that investigation. Parents do get a letter. They get the outcome of what has happened with that report. So this last slide here shows the number of bullying reports that we have received this school year, and actually over the past few years. You will see that the numbers are continuing to go down. Again, we know our 2021 school year was an anomaly in many ways, but our reports are not only going down, but you can see that the number of substantiated reports is about 3/4 of the reports that we receive. Now, again, unsubstantiated, that last quarter doesn't mean that we're not doing anything. It just means that we may need to take some remedial measures, but they wouldn't be necessarily something that would be consequenced or something that would go in a scholar's disciplinary record. What else did I want to make sure that you knew? That our counselors, again, do several targeted lessons with our scholars about bullying, how to recognize bullying if they're being bullied, how to maybe recognize if they are the bully, and some things that they could do there as well. So the responses and interventions may vary across the spectrum. Happy to go into more detail with you at another time if you would like, but if you had any questions tonight, also happy to answer those.
And this could be questions about the attendance also.
Yes,
probably.
absolutely.
Yeah, Ms. Snodgrass.
Thank you for all the information, and to the other folks as well, even though I didn't have questions for them. I had a question actually about some of the bullying stuff. One, I was wondering if you could just clarify, because I went to the homepage and put in the little search thing for bullying,
Yes.
but what it pulls up is a whole bunch of more like PDFs or Smithson's page with stuff. So can you clarify a little more exactly how we can find
Absolutely.
that?
So
what heading and would it be under from the homepage?
So you put in bullying right there in the search bar?
Yeah.
Is what you... I'm going to tell you what I think is an easier way to get to it, but just because I know the site. So under our departments...
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
How do we find it?
If you go under departments and then more.
Okay.
It's actually under the equity department.
Okay.
And student services. You'll see all of our links here: homeschool communicator, multicultural achievement, student services.
Okay.
And then on the left, they have bullying report information.
Okay. So
Some people
under-
just type in bullying and find it a little bit easier, but it is also under the student
Well,
services.
right, but it doesn't pull you to a page when you search bullying. It pulls you to like the different various resources and documents. So under more, under student service, no, under equity, right, for the
Equity
department. And
student
then under
services.
student services.
Yes.
Great.
And then bullying.
I think that's
Yes.
really, really important for folks to know so they can find it. Sorry, I have like two more.
Perfect.
So I also had a question about the form, and I know, and this was from a few years ago, so I understand that some of this may have just been like transitions, especially coming out of COVID. My question is, it's great that the form is there online for parents if they hear about it from their kids or kids when they're at home. My question is, what is the process then if either a teacher observes something or an administrator observes or a student just goes to a teacher or administrator? I know some parents who felt like they had like approached an administrator, said something, thought it was being taken care of, and then were later told, well, you didn't fill out the form, so I couldn't investigate. And again, from a couple years ago, I understand some of that, like these processes may have changed. So I'm just wondering if you could talk through a little bit, what is the process in terms of if a student is just reporting it or a parent is just reporting it, who else can be responsible for filling out the form and making sure our parents and our students really know what the process is and how something gets investigated?
It's a really good question. So thank you for asking that. I do think some of it has been through the transitional period. So all of our administrators were trained early on that if they hear that or a parent brings that to them, that they can sit down and should be sitting down right then with them. My secretary, if a parent calls her and says, my child's been bullied, what do I do? Fills out the report while the parent is online. We do typically encourage them to do it because they may have more information, like what did your child tell you? So we can sit with you. But yeah, we should not be assuming that someone else should do it. And so I encourage principals always to say, can we fill this out together, or would you like to use this computer and fill out the bullying report right then? Good question.
Perfect. And sorry, I have one more, which is just, I love what you said in terms of that. And I know it's like a full team effort, and we know that sometimes, kids are picking on other kids, and maybe it doesn't rise to the legal definition of bullying, but that can still be fairly traumatic for the kids, things like that. And you talked about the teams that are at the different schools, and I'm just wondering in terms of how or do parents or students know who might be on a team if they need to talk about something? Or is that more an internal thing?
It's more an internal process.
That's totally fair.
Yeah, because it does go to the principal's email. So good question.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Willoughby.
Yeah, Ms. London, would you mind reiterating what you said around the slide that had the Y and N when it came to like the cases and the reports?
Oh,
I wanted to
back in
make sure that I
in the
understood you
presentation?
correctly. Yeah.
Yep. If I can get back there, we will get back there.
Because I feel like I was misinterpreting and I got...
Right here?
Yes, this one. Could you explain again what the color differentiation means?
Yes, so the N, the blue at the top is not substantiated. The policy was not violated, the bullying policy.
Cool. I guess with it being late, I heard you indifferently saying it was the other way, and I was like, I don't feel like that's what N and Y mean. So that's why I had to make sure.
Unsubstantiated. So it was not a policy violation.
Mr. Cobbins.
Microphone, I think.
All right. I got to get used to this.
Now it's on.
Good. Okay. All right. In the case that the investigation is done and the bullying was, we really thought that bullying did take place.
Yes.
I know that the schools get together and resolve the issue, but is a part of resolving that issue is looking into the person who was bullied and
Absolutely.
following up to make sure that that mental effect of bullying does not linger on and cause other things.
Absolutely, that's an integral part of the investigation. What supportive measures have been put in place for the victim?
All right, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And if you type in bullying report, Ms. Snodgrass, then it should come up for you.
Ms. Farrell?
Or a three-step process, homepage, popular links, report safety concern, bullying report.
Yes, yep, absolutely, on the front page. That's a newer link than what we had
There we
for
go.
years, so yes.
I have a question about the attendance slide, which is back up on slide 12.
Yes.
So we definitely want our attendance generally to be over 80, so we get those APR points.
Yes.
So I was looking at the attendance that was super low, and I had to increase to like 200% so I could see it. But
I was gonna say, you see me trying to do the same thing.
the one that concerned me, or that prompted a question in my mind, was the Career Center at 31.3%. I cannot imagine, with all the wonderful things we're offering at the Career Center, and students choose to take a class there, and they usually do it because it's something they're interested in. What in the world is happening there or what do you think might be happening to cause attendance to be 31%?
Yes, so I remember seeing that question from you all, and I think my response was, I need to do some digging in the Career Center and the Triple E program for those numbers. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably just a marking error, because I agree with you, those are students who have chosen to take classes out there, so it's probably just a bookkeeping, a housekeeping error there that we need to look at.
I wondered the same thing, because it's kids that are moving back and forth and maybe not knowing who they check in with. Thank you for, I'm sorry that I did not remember that was the response to the questions. Anyone else? All right, thank you. Oh, sorry. Mr. Lyman.
With the attendance in mind, it's good to see that a handful of our schools are scratching back up into the 90%, and for the most part, everybody's going back up, so that's a good sign. With bullying, then I assume then we would rather families and students default to going ahead and filling out that information on just in case.
Absolutely.
Just to make sure. We'd rather investigate it and come up with a no, it didn't happen, than not.
Absolutely. And so I'm really glad you asked that question, because if, for instance, John Lyman was accused of bullying, we did the investigation and it was not substantiated, then that doesn't go in your disciplinary record. So yes, we'd rather get the information, let us do the investigating, and then we can make a determination from there.
And then with bullying, then, are we seeing any sort of correlation, like with attendance? Our seniors, they like to not come to school. Is there that same sort of thing with attendance, where there are particular grade levels or classes that are just...
With regard to bullying?
Correct, that are having more incidents.
Middle school tends to be our highest.
Middle
I don't think
school.
that's a surprise. Middle school, so there's those last 2 years of elementary, most of middle, and then maybe the first year of high school. is
What
where it tends
additional
to balance.
supports then could help out our middle schools, other than just don't be in middle school?
Got to go to middle school.
Go to school, yeah. But
I think that You Matter program and just really focuses a lot on self-esteem and how to advocate for yourself positively. Those are a lot of those years where I'm trying to figure out how to make friends, and maybe I don't know how to make friends, and so I do it the inappropriate way. So it's a lot of conversation that happens at middle school around that area.
And I'd like to add that, they were piloting a program at Lang Middle School, Give Me
Five.
Give Me
Yes.
Five. And we're also looking at a specific program just for the middle schools around building relationships, because we know when scholars feel they're part of school and there's someone that truly wants me here, then they tend to connect. So we have some training. We're looking at some training coming up on April
16th and 17th.
16th and 17th for the middle school principals to start looking at programmatically and having a consistent program in place to start building on that.
Thank you. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone, for
Yeah.
the presentations.
And if I may, President Waters, I'd like to truly extend an invitation if anyone would like to visit the High Road, just to have put things in context. We'd love to facilitate that.
Thank you. I imagine we'll take you up on that. We'll next move to our update on equal opportunity schools with Dr. Helen Porter and Dr. Taylor.
I'm going to put this firmly in Dr. Taylor's capable hands.
Do I have to do anything to present mode? I always need help.
She asked the question, and you said, how do we get there?
How about that? Okay, thank you for the opportunity to share with you about a partnership we have with Equal Opportunity Schools. So what is EOS? Essentially, EOS partners with school systems across the country to ensure that schools provide equitable access, belonging, and success in AP courses. Historically, they've only focused on AP enrollment. Columbia Public Schools has been a driving force for them to look at dual credit courses as well. And so as of this school year, they are now helping us track classes of students who are taking dual credit. We at Columbia Public Schools have always believed that there are opportunities for students to take a extended level course of knowledge or rigor, but that doesn't mean that every course needs to be for an AP course. A lot of our families find major benefits and advantages of dual credit as well, and we've always historically known that we in Columbia Public Schools have encouraged students in the dual credit environment as well, and so now EOS is now tracking that enrollment as well. So we're really thrilled with our partnership with them, and they're taking our feedback and utilizing that. So one of the things that the goal of Equal Opportunity Schools is to eliminate barriers for students who are underrepresented to take these rigorous courses such as AP or dual credit. And so on the screen, you'll see the top 5 barriers that EOS's research has suggested is a barrier for taking one of those upper level courses, as represented by those historically underrepresented students of color and low income, and which is that top line. So adult encouragement is one of the major benefits. Maybe a teacher not suggesting that the teacher or the student take an AP course. Benefit barriers, the student doesn't understand why taking an AP or dual credit course at the high school level can be so advantageous to them. The general knowledge of enrolling in a course. How do I do that? What is the mechanism to enroll in one of those courses? And then a sense of belonging. One of the things that our work has done with EOS is really focus in on that belonging mechanism, like essentially what Dr. Yearwood was just saying. Having a relationship with somebody or an adult in the school is what pushes our students and drives them to want to be successful and take rigorous coursework. And so one of the things you'll see, this is CPS data specifically, so I failed to mention this is a national report that you're seeing for the barriers. Some statistical data you'll see with just within Columbia Public Schools is that belonging mechanism. The students on the left-hand side of the screen are students who have not yet taken an AP course, and they are suggesting that essentially one of the major reasons is they don't feel like they would belong in that classroom. And obviously belonging can mean a number of different things, but basically what they're telling us is that they don't see themselves in that course or students like them in that course. Once we have the opportunity to encourage students to take an AP course, you can see those numbers drastically change and lower, and students are telling us that they do feel like there's a belonging. They do feel like other students that are historically underrepresented are in those environments as well. So our goal and our work with CPS is to try to break those barriers to get our first-time underrepresented students into an AP or dual credit environment. One of the things we know and isn't represented on the slide is in the major kind of back room conversations is when we are encouraging a student to take one of those AP or dual credit courses, what supports will that individual student need to be successful in that environment? So we have to look at them individually and determine are there additional supports for as any student would need. So here's our partnership with Columbia Public Schools and EOS. EOS provides a 4-phase framework, which is essentially the opportunity to start with really building relationships. It's about establishing relationships not only with EOS and Columbia Public Schools, but relationships with our staff and relationships with our students. And so how do we learn through training and professional development in small equity groups on how to identify, encourage, and enroll students in AP or dual credit courses. That's part of the work that we do with EOS. Although EOS does not record data on other stretch courses, Columbia Public School educators have been able to use the knowledge we've gained from EOS to encourage students who may be in other situations to take what we would refer to as stretch class. So a prime example of that is we have a lot of great offerings in our Career Center courses that wouldn't be considered AP or dual credit, but we feel like, man, this kid is on the track to be a great welder. We want to get him in welding 2 or 3. That's not going to show up on the data, but our counselors are equally invested in pushing those kids into those courses, and we deem those as stretch courses. Another example is a student who has a IEP, who's in a restricted environment for maybe like their math class. All the students within the course maybe have an IEP as well. They're in an essentials environment. We may, working through that IEP, stretch them to a coexisted environment. That may be a stretch course for those students. So although we're only tracking data on AP and dual credit, we're using the knowledge that we're gaining from this process to apply it in other areas. So I wanted to add that there. We are currently in phase 1 of the process of working with, of that 4-phase process of working with EOS to establish those relationships, to facilitate site visits. Currently, EOS has been on site from their surrounding locations across the country twice this year to work with our equity teams, and we've done a number of Zooms and professional development beyond that. They help us identify barriers and opportunities and help us analyze the data we receive from our students and staff on students who would potentially benefit from enrolling in an AP or dual credit course. So in year 1, just to show you some of the data, the blue graph lines you can see from our different populations, our subgroups, our demographic populations are the students who were actually enrolled in an AP course. And the green were the students who were requesting an AP course the following school year. So you can see an increase in all categories with our year 1 work within working with EOS on the number of students who were requesting to take a dual credit course the following school year, which would be this school year. So this is last year's enrollment data to this year's course request. This is once again last year's data, but we surveyed over about 1,800 students across all of our grade levels in the 9 through 12 high schools. We had 620 sophomores and juniors who identified on what we called our outreach list. These are our historically underrepresented students. And then 400 of those students had registered for at least one AP course. And at that time, EOS was not tracking the dual credit courses as well. So that's some data we requested, and I'll show you here. So this is what we've historically known, that we have a lot of students who take both AP and dual credit courses. Kind of working with EOS over the past 2 years, you can kind of are trying to get to about a 60% level of students who are encouraged or considering taking an AP course is kind of the benchmark that we've worked by. And so you can see the students in the blue are taking an AP course. The students in the green category are taking an AP and dual credit course, and our students in the yellow are taking a dual credit course. So over our different subgroups. So part of our work with EOS is then to look at these numbers and make determinations about how to support, recruit, and retain students into those upper rigorous level courses and the different demographic subgroups. So the way that we do that is in the fall, we conduct surveys with students and staff. To complete that survey, we take district data from demographics. Dave Wilson and his team at AID help us tremendously with this process. We look at enrollment trends. We look at achievement data with those individual students. And students then have what's called a student insight card created for them by EOS. On this a student insight card, you can see there's a sample. This is not a CPS student, but this is a national CPS. I just want to highlight that I'm not sharing student data here, but this is on their website, so this is public information. What you'll see on that student insight card is how they perform on their MAP or EOC scores historically. Their iReady data would be available to us, who their trusted adults are that they've identified, what barriers they've said, and then one of the things that we really like about it is through the survey, students highlight what I'll do on my next slide is what are called learning mindsets. And so of these mindsets, it's academic identity, community leadership, focus, grit, growth mindset, purpose for learning, and self-efficacy. And students are identified as having these learning mindsets. So when we combine all of the data, we're looking for students who have at least 3 of these mindsets to push, recruit, and suggest through adult ownership and relationships that they take an AP or dual credit course. So the students do that work, the staff do that work, and when we get that feedback, we're looking for one of those individuals saying they have one of those mindsets. Through our partnership with EOS, we do professional development with our trusted adults. So students identify teachers who they deem trusted adults. These adults are notified by school personnel, and then they're encouraged to take those AP courses in the spring of every school year when we're doing it's actually in the winter, when we're doing course requests. We have what's called kind of like a stop day where teachers would share what classes are in alignment with the courses that they teach, and then those students have the insight cards and their trusted adult list so they can have individual conversations with the students to suggest that they would be a great candidate for an AP or dual credit course. So this is kind of how the plan works with EOS. We do large group meetings with students, or historically we've done in our first 2 years mostly step 2, which is one-on-one conversations. Our student insight cards are with their counselors, and every student has a one-on-one when they're doing their course request, and the student and the counselor go over their insight card and they make recommendations for those courses coming up. And we also engage with, obviously, families. We want the families to know that if we're encouraging them to take one of those upper level courses, a lot of times they'll have a lot of questions about what does that mean for them. I'm also an athlete, or I'm in the band, and the time commitment of those things. How can we balance all of those things together? So that's kind of our partnership. In year 1, we saw about an 8% increase in our underrepresented populations of students taking and maintaining and staying within those course rates or those courses. We don't have data for this school year because we're in course request time right now.
Surprise, surprise, Ms. Farrell.
Okay, so we've had 1 year where you said about 8% more students registered, so they've taken AP exams in theory. Is there any way to track that? Is there any data that tells you? Is there any data that tells you anything? As far as. You know what I'm saying? No, you know what I'm saying.
Well, I think I do know what you're
You know
saying.
what
So
I'm saying.
I'll
You know
help.
what I'm saying.
I won't say I'll help you, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
Yes.
I think you're suggesting that once a student enrolls in a AP or online course, is there any data suggest that they were also successful in that
Right.
environment? Yeah, and I think that would come.
He knows what I'm saying.
Yes, it's important we track the data. And remember, we just started this program last
Right,
year.
that's
so,
what I was-
So the
yeah.
verdict is a little bit out. Last year, they spent sort of organizing, recruiting, and so on. And this is really the first year we can say that the data is available. So we'll be tracking that going forward. Yeah.
Okay, because then we'll look and see, maybe there's additional supports that need to be added. Okay, all right, thanks.
Yep.
See, I'm so glad that you and I speak the same language.
We were there. I was with you.
That was impressive. Mr. Willoughby?
So I know EOS has helped us kind of get into the space of doing this, right? I guess my question in this, especially because we're looking at an action item related to this contract, what is the continued benefit continuing the relationship now that we've gotten this started? And we've gotten the training and we've gotten the space of knowing how to do this. I mean, from your perspective,
Yeah.
right, as someone who's working with them, like, what is the reasoning to continue the contract if we've kind of gotten those things down that we should be doing?
Yeah, so I think one is obviously we have a great aid department, but the insight cards is really what EOS prides itself on and produces. So that would be a pretty big undertaking for our aid department, I would assume. I'm not going to speak for them, but I mean, we get an individualized card for every student in the district based on the survey data and what all the data combined. So that would be one. Number two, in phase one, and that we're still in, we're kind of working in small equity teams of adults within the building, probably 10 to 12 adults. We've contacted and requested through work with our director of professional development, Dr. Seth Woods, to maybe go more full scale and bring in EOS during like maybe our October dates as a session where we could provide the benefit of taking an AP course training and stuff like that. So I think we can go more full scale with a few more years of opportunity of working with EOS.
You're going to have to forgive me because it might take me a minute to word this correctly, but I would assume there is some data supporting increased AP enrollment for students who have had exposure to challenging courses younger. Mm-hmm. Do you anticipate, so I guess my question is, is that anywhere in their realm of work to try to get more like honors or challenge opportunities in the middle school? Because honestly, as a parent of two kids that have gone through middle school, it's readily acknowledged to be like a little bit of a just make it through middle school and then you can get the good stuff in high school.
I think one, EOS is exploring and they're dipping their toes into offering this at the middle school level. Like the data that we have access to currently, they only offer it for 9 through 12, and they are exploring entering that middle school space so that more data and professional development can be offered to middle school teachers and students. To your point about taking those entry-level courses, that's where we really kind of have a lot of our stacked ninth grade courses are what we would consider our honors courses, in the hopes that a student would be exposed at the honor level before taking an AP course. So typically we don't have a ton of offerings at the ninth grade level of AP courses. It's more of the honors, so that we see a stair-step progression into their sophomore year, really making that first big jump into an AP course or multiple AP courses for most of our students. So I don't know if that answers your middle school question, but it does kind of show you the progression of where we see students moving towards the AP environment.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you for the presentation.
Of course, thank you.
Okay. We will move on to our attendance area process timeline update with Mr. Gooch.
All right, we'll try to make this pretty quick. We do have Karen Jackson from Wolpert Cooperative Strategies could not be here in person tonight, so she's done a really good voiceover of a presentation that we're going to start. But before that, I want to just hit some key things. As we go through this, and it's obvious tonight, this is a process that there are passionate people that have very diverse wants, needs, and opinions on this. So that's just the nature of this. So it's going to be very important as you get feedback and you have constituents that are trying to give you feedback, drive them to the survey, okay? That's where we're collecting. That's where we can guarantee then that information is put into a summary and then it will be digestible and usable for you all to make your decisions. So please do that as those continue to open up for different phases of this. So tonight we're going to show you what is called the third option that was brought up during long-range planning today. There will be a third option survey that is now open because we've publicized that. We put that on the website, and that will stay open through the 10th. We'll go run that through 2 days after this meeting, so the general public still has an opportunity to give feedback on that. So that's a couple of important things that I wanted to just clear up before we start the video.
Mr. Gooch, could I interrupt you and ask a clarifying question?
Mm-hmm.
So did another email go out to all of our families, letting them know if you already filled out the survey for options 1 and 2, there's now a third option? Because if you had already filled it out, you would have no reason to check.
Right. I don't believe an email did. However, there is that third option is posted as a link on the website, and that has been on there since Friday. As soon as that came up, that went on there. So
Okay, I'm going to ask that we send another email out. And okay, well,
I think it went to Seth.
I heard during the meeting, but I checked my phone and I didn't get it yet. But I'm sure it takes a minute. Okay, well, good job. Task 1 down. And then I don't know if we feel like it might be appropriate to extend the deadline for the survey past the 10th. I mean, if people get the email, if they don't see it until tomorrow, how does it feel like we really want their opinion if we're like, okay, you have to let us know, but you have 5 minutes? So.
Well, she has to have a little time to compile that. So I think if we look at what happened with the survey data after the open house, the first day was about 50, and then by the second day, we had well into almost reaching 200. So it seems to multiply pretty quickly. I can ask how long we could actually stretch that, but I know for sure she wouldn't start compiling that until the morning of the 11th. So that gives us tomorrow, Wednesday, and then she would compile it on Thursday. Start compiling it and getting it ready for your all's special session then on the 17th.
Does anyone else have any feelings about extending the survey deadline? I mean, maybe we don't feel like it's necessary. People on the long-range planning committee, feel free to weigh in on this. Ms. Frau?
I mean, I guess my thought is we're having a special session on the evening of the 17th, right? And that's a Wednesday, is that correct? So, if we could even extend it until Friday, I mean, we don't need anything until Monday sometime, right? We wouldn't need anything from Karen until Monday or Tuesday.
Mr. Willoughby, go ahead and weigh in.
So, I mean, one piece of it, I think, comes into the fact that how all that information gets compiled up and gets presented. When are we as a board wanting to have access to that, right? I would say if we push it to Friday, we're looking at probably not seeing that information until day of the meeting, like in the compiledness of what it needs to be in, because one of those things that I know has been done in the past, I don't know how the report might look like in this kind of space, right, is some compositing of like what are some common themes that have been popping up, common areas of the qualitative feedback that people have been typing in that aren't just hitting a radial button in the survey. And so that does take time for going through and stuff. And so I think that's just something for us to consider as a board, right? Of if we want to get this a little bit sooner than Wednesday, like right the day of a special session, like potentially having a cutoff for Thursday of the 11th would be good, because that gives Karen enough time to compile, put that in, review and make sure things are compiled fully for Monday, and then I would say being able to get it by Tuesday.
I think it'd be important to consider when you'll have to post that. I think we would want to give Karen enough time to be able to have kind of that final product, if you will, with all that feedback when we post the agenda, because then that goes out public. We wouldn't want to be making any other changes to any of that after that, because then you'll be voting at that special session. So I think that's probably at least what I think we've got to give her at least a couple days prior to the agenda publishing date to be able to give her time to actually summarize that for you and get that in a usable format for you all to be able to digest as well.
And this just occurred to me that the email already went out, and it probably says the survey closes on the 10th. Does it say that?
Michelle sent the email, so.
Okay. Did you get it? Does it say the 10th?
It does not.
Does it have a deadline on it at all?
It says, please utilize this online survey if you have not responded to any of the phase 1 attendance options. Please utilize this one if you have already responded to options 1 and 2, but wish to provide feedback on 3. And then it gives open house dates for phases 2.
Okay, so we need to communicate a deadline for the.
There's no date in the email, so it's just on the survey form, so if you wanted to change it, then Karen could just change it on the survey form, not a big deal.
But we need to settle that tonight so we can get that publicized
Well,
correctly.
either way, I think the communication needs to let people know when the deadline is for it. I mean, if I get an email and then I go to take the survey and I learn that, oh, it closed because it was only open for 1 day. So I'm sorry, but I feel like we almost need to send a follow-up email with the date that it's going to close.
Okay, so President Waters, if I may ask, yes, we can definitely send a follow-up email with a closing date on it. When would you all like to see the survey end? So let's go ahead and, let's do that and push it that way.
72 hours.
72, okay.
From the time it was sent.
72
So
hours from the time it was
if
sent.
that means it's, 5 p.m. by Thursday,
Okay.
have it in, I would think that would give Karen enough time to go through, but I definitely feel like we need to lean on more time. I mean, ultimately,
Right.
option 3 came out of conversation and ideas and things that were coming at this thing, which is what's supposed to happen. But because it is a brand new thing and it did just go out, and unless you found it on accident, you didn't know it existed. And so I know that there's lots of folks that want to give those comments and things on it. So giving more time than less is going to be good. So
Okay.
5 p.m. Thursday.
So Mr. Gooch, if you don't mind, let's go ahead and have some conversation with Karen and just let her know what the wishes of the board is, or the wish of the board is, and we can make that
We'll
adjustment.
send out an email in the morning.
Yes.
That at 5 p.m. on Thursday, that survey will close.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And then if it wasn't clear yet, the time the board is going to vote on phase 1 is going to be at a special session on Wednesday, the 17th at 6 p.m. here at the board office.
Correct.
Do you want that included in the email as it goes out, or?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions before we go through the slide deck? Roll it.
I'm gonna put it on this computer.
Hello, my name is Karen Jackson with Wolford, previously Cooperative Strategies. I will be taking you through the Columbia Public Schools Phase 1 attendance area options.
Can you help fix that? It's just coming out of the computer.
Hello, my name is Karen Jackson with Wolford, previously Cooperative Strategies. I will be taking you through the Columbia Public Schools Phase 1 attendance area options, as well as the results that we have received on our survey so far. We run a data and community-driven process that not only takes into account district goals, but also community feedback. We value all stakeholder feedback, whether it's from the board, administration, or community, and use it to craft a recommendation. Oftentimes, this means making changes to boundary options based on the community feedback that we receive. This process is split into 3 phases to determine the boundary or attendance area changes over the next 3 years. Phase 1 will be implemented in the fall of 2024 and will fill the new Russell Boulevard Elementary addition. The Phase 1 changes will only move students into the new addition at Russell Boulevard. Phase 2 will be implemented in the fall of 2025 and will fill a new addition at Battle Elementary, balance enrollments among the secondary schools, and balance enrollments among the elementary schools that will not be impacted by the new Southwest Elementary School. Phase 3 will be implemented in the fall of 2026 and will fill the new Southwest Elementary School, as well as balance enrollments among the remaining elementary schools in the Southwest Corridor. The list on the right details the major dates remaining in this process. On April 1st, we held an open house for community members to review Phase 1 options and ask questions. Through these discussions, as well as the survey results that we've received, we have already created an additional option, which I will get to later in this presentation. Open houses for Phases 2 and 3 will occur May 7th through 9th. The board will be updated about these meetings and survey results on May 13th, and then be presented with final options based on the community feedback on June 10th. We are anticipating a board vote on Phases 2 and 3 on July 8th. Next, I will be sharing our Phase 1 attendance area options as well as the results that we've received so far. The map on the left shows Option 1. Option 1 moves the Columbia Square Townhomes, Courtyard Apartments, and Tiger Village Apartments from Fairview Elementary to Russell Boulevard Elementary. The area of change is outlined in yellow. The first table on the right shows the new metrics for Fairview Elementary and Russell Boulevard Elementary. The next table shows the new percentages of students moving on to middle school together. This change moves 59 elementary students and fills the addition at Russell Boulevard. It pushes the diversity metrics at Russell Boulevard closer to the district-wide average, but pushes the metrics at Fairview further away from the district-wide average. The attendance area changes remove the 3-way split at Fairview and improves the feeder split at Russell Boulevard. This change also leaves room for enrollment growth at Fairview, which is expected to grow over the next 5 years. The chart on this slide shows the level of support for Option 1 from our survey. Some of the comments that we've heard about this option is that it minimizes disruption to established neighborhoods and schools. It emphasizes keeping children within walking distance to their current schools and maintains natural dividing lines. This option is seen as equitable and less disruptive, aligning with the goal of neighborhood schools. Some concerns include potential overcrowding at Russell and Fairview and the impact on diversity metrics, particularly at Fairview. It is noted that Option 1 increases diversity at Russell, which is seen as beneficial for students' exposure to diversity at an earlier age. There are also concerns about the impact of extended bus routes and crossing busy intersections for some families. Overall, Option 1 appears to be preferred for its balance between maintaining community cohesion and addressing diversity concerns. The map on the left of this slide shows Option 2. Option 2 moves the area south of Broadway and west of Greenwood Avenue that currently attends West Boulevard into the Russell Boulevard Elementary boundary. It also moves the area south of Broadway west of Glenwood Avenue, including the northern section of Glenwood Avenue, from Grant Elementary into the Russell Boulevard attendance area. The table on the right shows the new metrics for Grant, Russell Boulevard, and West Boulevard elementaries. The next table shows the new percentages of students moving on to middle school together. This change does create a three-way feeder split at Russell Boulevard, with students going to Gentry, Jefferson, and West middle schools. Should this option be recommended, that is an area we would more than likely address in our Phase 2 changes before it can impact any students. This change moves 44 elementary students and fills the addition at Russell Boulevard. It pushes the diversity metrics at Grant closer to the district-wide average, but pushes the metrics at Russell Boulevard and West slightly further away from the district-wide average. This change also leaves room for enrollment growth at Grant and West Boulevard, both of which are expected to grow over the next 5 years. The chart on this slide shows the level of support for option 2 from our survey. Option 2 has received mixed feedback, with concerns raised about disrupting established communities and children commuting longer distances. Some argue that maintaining neighborhood cohesiveness and preventing long drives should be prioritized. Others express concerns about splitting up stable districts and the impact on the middle school transitions. There are also concerns about the diversity metrics in this option. The majority of the comments are surrounding the potential change from Grant to Russell Boulevard, especially regarding the disruption of walkability and community ties. Overall, while option 2 addresses enrollment issues, it raises questions about equity, neighborhood integrity, and community well-being. Based on the feedback we have already received for Phase 1, we have created a new Option 3. This option is a combination of Options 1 and 2. Option 3 includes the neighborhood continuity change from West Boulevard Elementary to Russell Boulevard Elementary, which includes the area south of Broadway and west of Greenwood Avenue. It also moves the Columbia Square Townhomes, Courtyard Apartments, and Tiger Village Apartments from Fairview Elementary to Russell Boulevard Elementary. The first table on the right shows the new metrics for Russell Boulevard Elementary, Fairview Elementary, and West Boulevard Elementary. The next table shows the new percentages of students moving on to middle school together. This change moves 72 elementary students and fills the addition at Russell Boulevard. It pushes the diversity metrics at Russell Boulevard closer to the district-wide average, but pushes the metrics at Fairview Elementary and West Boulevard Elementary slightly further away from the district-wide average. Along for leaving room for growth at Fairview and West Boulevard, this change would also set both of these schools up to be able to provide enrollment relief to Mary Paxton Keeley Elementary in a future phase. At this time, we have yet to receive substantial feedback on Option 3. The survey responses that we receive over the next few days for Option 3 will be included in the results report that will be sent to you later this week. These charts illustrate information about the stakeholders who have responded to the survey so far. On the left, we have the stakeholders' relationship to CPS, whether they are a parent or guardian of a student, a grandparent, a staff member, etc. The majority of the responses have come from the parents or guardians of elementary students, followed by community members and then staff members. On the right, we have the respondents' school affiliation. The majority of the responses have come from those affiliated with Grant Elementary. The arrows indicate a school that is impacted by the Phase 1 options. We have updated our timeline to allow for additional responses on the new Option 3 attendance area changes. The online survey will remain open through April 10th. Because we have added a third option and our survey is set up to only allow one response per device, we created a second stakeholder feedback survey for our Phase 1 options. The top QR code will take you to the original survey, which now covers all three options. The bottom QR code should be used by those who have already responded to Options 1 and 2 and wish to respond to Option 3. This survey only covers Option 3. We encourage all community members to provide feedback on the options, as the more feedback we receive, the better informed the end decision will be. The board will be sent the full results report for the Phase 1 options on April 11th. Thank you for your time.
Since we moved that timeline, you'll probably get that on Friday instead of Thursday. Be happy to take questions that you may have, and if I can't answer them, I will definitely get those to Karen, and we will get those out to you tomorrow.
Mr. Willoughby.
No, yeah, so first, I somewhat underestimated how quickly Karen can do stuff. So as we can see, it might be a little bit quicker. So there we go. I also just wanted to say, I want to deeply apologize to our community members that were concerned and felt as if we were hiding this Option 3 from them. That wasn't the intended case at all. This was a conversation that happened the next day at our Long Range Facilities Planning Committee meeting, right after the open house that had happened around phase one, I was someone who in that really saying that I would be very interested in seeing potentially this hybrid option be presented. We didn't know for sure if it would be. And that's a part of why there wasn't any massive push of communication until today, due to the fact that not knowing for sure would a third option at all be presented, because it would be worse to say we're going to have a third one option presented and then it not be actually presented to the board. But in that information got put up into the survey a little bit sooner, and people were seeing that, and people were concerned on where those things were going. And so that just comes out of a space of we were being super proactive on one end while kind of holding off on the communication end, and that just kind of created discomfort in that way. And so I do apologize for that, and please know that we were not trying to hide anything. This really did come out of those conversations. It is a hybrid option. It's not this brand new kind of option kind of space of pulling from a different area than what was already sort of talked about. And it did really come out of that collaborative space. And if you were to go back and listen to the Long Range Facilities Planning Committee meeting that happened last Wednesday, in that recording, you'll hear both, I would say from all the committee members, but especially from Vice President Lyman, Ms. Farrar, and myself, and from staff, just around being like, if this option is presented, and if it is, we want to make sure that community members have an opportunity to fill out the survey and provide feedback on that. None of us were trying to hide this, but I do apologize that sense and that feeling was created in that space of discomfort.
Ms. Brow, go ahead.
Get to ask all the questions. My question is, we have 3 different scenarios now, and this probably is more a question for Dr. Yearwood or someone else. No offense, Randy, but
all right.
The question is, have we reviewed the academic achievement of the current options? Of those students. So like we've got 59 in one option, 72 in another option, 44 in another option. Have we reviewed that to determine if whichever option we choose that we're sending to Russell, we might need to add additional, you're laughing at me, supports or something? Am I just thinking too deeply here?
No, I'm enjoying the dialogue. Okay.
Do you need a translator? Is
No,
that
no.
okay with you here?
So what I'm hearing you ask is, are we considering academic performance of the scholars that we're sending to Russell to make sure there's a diversity in?
No, to make sure that if there is any concern there, that we make sure we put the appropriate supports or any additional supports in place at Russell.
Sure.
I'll give you the mic.
It's all good.
So, it was somebody's question.
No, it's all good. So we're not looking from the perspective of their academic performance. We want to make sure that it doesn't matter what building you're in, you get the support that you need. What we do have the ability to do is go back and look at which of these students are moving who currently have supports in place, and what do those supports look like presently, and if they're going to another location, do we have comparable supports? And if we don't, we make sure that we look at FTE considerations to make those transitions.
Right, because and it might not necessarily mean new, it just might mean reallocating. Okay,
Correct.
I just wondered. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask, prior to the open houses on the 7th, 8th, and 9th of May, in my opinion, something that would be helpful would be to have Wolpert or Karen present some of the options for those phases that are going to be part of the open house to the public ahead of time.
Yes.
Because you would have no way to know if you're going to be impacted and do I need to come to the open house if you haven't seen them. So I would like the options to go out prior to the open house so that it's not a surprise
Correct, and
to people.
that is our plan. And
Okay.
we'll have that up on the website. It'll also come to you all in your Friday report prior to those. So you all will have them, the public will have them. We have the open house, then the survey can roll for a little while and we get that final data and then be able to start giving you summaries on each of those scenarios.
Okay. Ms. Nosgras.
please don't hate me for asking this question, which maybe doesn't bode well. I am curious. So looking at on the map, from the presentation, what was presented with the options, if we look at capacity for the schools with the current boundaries, Russell is at 75%, which is actually the same as what West Boulevard is. And I know we have other buildings that aren't necessarily filled. Does anyone need to move next year, or is there a possibility that additional options can be explored as part of the next phase so that we can see it in a more cohesive picture?
Okay.
I know you didn't
So-
answer when I said, like, don't hate me, so it's okay. You can hate me.
Here's the reality of this. We're right now looking at the absolute smallest part of a 3-phase plan. So if you cut one phase out, you've just added that to one of the other phases. Would it be physically possible? That is maybe. As a board, we're trying to put you in a position where we don't have a whole lot of additional capacity that's brand new and running at a very low volume. I'm not sure. I mean, that's one thing from a financial standpoint. And as we try to work with our community for future bonds, I think we've got to show good stewardship. So using that is definitely a part of that. Could we squeak by? I want to talk a little bit more programming from a programming standpoint versus just boundaries too. So I'm not trying to.
No, I think one of the things that we did, if you recall in our previous boundary changes, we delayed that Beulah and Mill Creek transition. In the process of doing that, we have buildings at capacity at over 100%. And so looking at those buildings and looking at how we can provide relief for the building as well as for our teachers, making that transition in this next phase is optimal.
I guess my point is none of the buildings in this phase are at 100%. They're all below 90%, and none are below 75%. And so I'm not. So I guess I'm just asking too. I'm thinking about if we know that there's going to be some additional changes to middle school and high school boundaries that are part of this next phase, and part of what we're considering is the feeder schools and how our elementary schools are being split. It's hard. It's hard for me to get that big picture without seeing all of that. And so I guess that's where I'm coming from. The change is going to happen. Like there's a reality that somebody is going to be upset, and we have this additional capacity, and we also know that the change potentially has to happen from north, right? Because if the new elementary school is opening south, that's going to pull kids in the other direction. I totally get that. I'm just trying to figure out, think about how do we get that big picture as we're making the decision so that we can really be considering, because we're looking at, as part of this, where are these kids feeding into for middle school, but we don't know what's being proposed for the middle school yet. Does that make sense? Because we haven't seen any of that yet. So I guess that's the question. And I understand that it's new space, and so it's nicer to have kids in a new space versus an old space, and all of that. So I'm not sorry.
So that's why when we did the options that we originally did, they were very limited, so that we weren't doing a lot that would affect then 2 and 3 that are further down the road. We tried to look at neighborhoods that could do that. Ultimately, the question is up to you, and so I'm going to need a whole lot more guidance from you all if that's the direction that you're going.
I think it makes sense to have long-range planning, have this discussion, and for board members that want to weigh in on that to connect with a member of the long-range planning committee. Sorry, Blake. Blake's glasses literally just broke in half.
Well,
Oh. When is the next? Oh my gosh, you sure did.
Heather, you have something?
Heather, go ahead.
I just want to address the piece about the transition to middle school, because I know they said it in the long-range meeting. I don't know if it was on that one. But regardless, those people are going to the same middle school. Like that part, those people that are across the street are going to West Middle School regardless of whether they go to Fairview or whether they go to Russell. That wasn't part of moving for the secondary piece. I know they were talking about the feeder patterns. Didn't they discuss that in the video, I believe? And they were talking about actually condensing some of the feeder patterns rather than Russell going to 3 different middle schools, having them going to 1 or 2. So just to address that issue. And we spent $7.5 million, so I really, really would rather fill the school than leave it open. So.
And I would love to, take some of this back to the demographer, to Karen, because there's some questions that perhaps she may have some answers based upon her predictive analytics. So if we can send those questions back, in email form, we'll definitely get an answer to you immediately.
Okay, I saw a second comment from Blake and one from Ms. Farrell, Mr. Willoughby, and one from Ms. Farrell also. Okay, go ahead.
Second comment, you go.
I don't know if I'm a second comment or first comment. Have I
Okay,
commented on
then you
this
go.
one yet?
You go.
2 questions. Yeah, you're right, Heather, because with the feeder thing, but since we don't know what phase 2 with the new middle school and high school boundaries are going to be, we don't know. Is that what your point is, Jean? That right now, we move these things around, this is where they're going to attend, but in July, we're going to approve boundary changes for middle and high school, so that may not still be the case. Is that, do I
I'm
understand
saying
that?
those apartments are across the street from West Middle
Oh, well,
School.
yeah,
It
I
is
know.
highly unlikely that they are going to go to any other
We've
middle
had some
school.
strange things happen. The only other comment I had was on the timeline, and I would like the board to consider approving phases 2 and 3 in the fall rather in the middle of the summer. So I'd like to put that on our radar, please.
I don't disagree with that because our summer meetings are poorly, people are on vacation and they are less likely to be able to give public comment, and they're typically business only. So I can see on Randy's face that we're
Well,
literally blowing some things up.
Well, the
but-
precedent that's been set and the ones done previously, we like to try to give constituents the largest amount of lead time as possible. That's always been kind of around that 18-month mark. So we're really pushing that now with what we're doing. Now, if so, I mean, you can do it. It's just going to give families less notice of what's happening.
My personal feeling is that this right now feels tight. And I know we're under some pressure to hurry up and make a decision on phase 1 so that Russell can ask for the appropriate FTE that they need to hire for the upcoming school year. And so while I can understand the implosion going on in many people's brains right now, I actually appreciate Ms. Snodgrass's comment about holding off and rolling phase 1 into phases 2 and 3 and pushing that until September. And then all of it happens, then phases 1 and 2 happen in the fall of 25. So that's an option that makes sense to me.
Is that
I
an
would-
option that you want us to include on a survey? Is that just something that you want to delay the process? Because I need to know.
I know,
Because
I know. We.
earlier in this discussion, we delineated a new timeline for notification on the phase 3, the survey and that sort of thing. So I need to know that pretty much now.
And sorry, this is part of the, like, we haven't had a chance to discuss this as a board since the long-range planning meeting. So this is our committee update as well as the board update. So Mr. Willoughby, you've got your hand raised. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I just wanted to make some clarifications because I think we are having two separate conversations that are melding in together. You were talking around having a larger lead time as much as possible, and when we were saying 18 months, what we were talking about was phase 2 and phase 3, not phase 1. And I think some of it is getting confused, and I just want to make sure some clarity to like public and stuff around where that was at. Phase 1, 2 for this, I mean, we were scheduled to be doing this phase 1 kind of change right a couple years ago. I mean, we pushed back just because of where things were at.
Phase 1 is what was phase 3 on the
previous one. Yeah.
Because of the delay in the construction schedule for Russell.
Now, the actual zones and things like that, that wasn't a thing that was
Correct.
in that kind of space. In that, I do think brains exploded.
Also, I just want to apologize that like I didn't mean to spring that. It's just something that I've been thinking about the last couple days. It's not like, so I just like trying to figure out if it, anyway, apologies for no advance
apologize to
notification
me.
to everyone.
So, you got it? Yeah, I figured out. Okay.
If we were to push back, how would this impact the contract with Woolhart?
I mean, we can still continue. I don't know if you would want to throw out the work that they're done, because if you're looking for a September timeline, the work still is going to be going on. I mean, and so
Okay.
I don't think you would want to jump that ship. So it will have to, I mean, it will continue to go on, and I'm assuming the possibility then changing to a 2-phase process.
No, yeah, I guess I mainly just asked because, right, we had a specific contract outlined, like
Yeah.
timelines and things like that. And so it just in a preparing for us, like if we do push back, we might need to pay a little bit more because the contract's going to be longer, right, than what we originally had. But I don't know for sure if that's a thing or not. That's me just.
So I just want to be clear and transparent. Like, this has been the timeline since when we did the RFP, when we issued the RFP, when we did the contract, that it was going to be a 3 phase. This was the timeline. April or May is when the first phase was going to happen. It's not like we just decided last week that this was when we were going to make the decision on phase 1. We knew Russell was already a delay because really it was supposed to happen last year. We were delaying for a year because we needed to fill the school. So it wasn't something long range just decided last week. This is something that we've been talking about for 6 months. We got an update from Karen in January, February, March, and now we're in April, that this is when these decisions and this is when the process was happening and the open houses and the surveys and the decision was being made. So I just want to be clear that, yes, it might cost, I'm sure they can do whatever for a fee. I mean, they'll do whatever we want them to do, but it was a pretty clear process from the start, I believe.
I think the timeline has been okay. The problem is that, as we saw in looking at phase 1, we had one open house, and within a couple hours, we had a third idea that was kind of developed right there. And that was working with one school, adding kids to one school and potentially moving students from 2 or 3 other schools. And in a couple hours, we all of a sudden came up another idea presented. Phases 2 and phase 3 are going to have lots more movement, and there's going to be lots more ideas, and it's going to be a much more open, process. Looking at our live-in utilization at Russell, they're not in a big need of needing students, just like there's not any students at the schools that we're looking at moving them from are in a huge need right away of moving them out of there. Unless, I think Karen was going to try to get some updated demographic info on, to help out the diversity index stuff, but there's really no need to do it right now, I think, to Jean's point. To throw it all out there right now is, I understand it, but at the same time, I think that delaying things and continuing to have open houses and meetings to talk about folks, I'd like to throw a survey out to every student in the district, all of our middle school and high school students, to ask them what they think. I think on the presentation that Karen did, we got 4 responses from students, and we have 19,000 in the district. Getting more student responses, I think, would be a good idea. Delaying this and making sure that we get it right, or as close to right as possible, I think is going to be the smart choice.
So, we are going to take whatever guidance the board is going to give us. So if someone could just compile whatever it is, give us an email, give us what the board wants, so that way we can start acting on it. Because and also considering, going back to long range and getting all that done. We just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, because a lot of great ideas coming and a lot of great ideas will come, and so on. I just want to make sure that, we don't get into what you call analysis paralysis and then nothing is happening. So as long as, just tell us what you all want, and we will get it done. No problem.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that has to happen right now.
I understand.
Like
I understand,
with the
because
survey and
we have
things
just
like
said that we were going to vote next Wednesday.
Yeah.
So, however, listening to the people that are also on the long range planning committee and listening to other board members that are reacting in real time to this information, to the fact that the email just went out today, that a date wasn't included, that we're having to do all this other pivoting, I agree that getting it right is necessary. We have to do that. And if it takes a little bit more time, it's not hurting us. So if we're anticipating some students moving into the Russell attendance area just through movement anyway, from what I understand. So if there's a little bit of extra space in a building, then, we have things we can do with that space for a year while we get this right. So what I understand to be the consensus, and Mr. Harper, we haven't heard from you on this, so if you have an opinion, this is the time.
My only concern is that we seem to be pivoting at the last minute on a lot of things, and I'm trying to process it in real time while we're talking about it in real time, and that does not bode well for the final decision if we're making them that quickly. So I'll be honest with you, I feel like a delay is necessary just to process the fact we just got a phase 3, the fact that the survey just went out. I do think that a slight delay is warranted so that we can get some more feedback.
I guess my question is, what do we mean by a slight delay? Because I'm trying to understand. It sounds like one of the things that we're considering is just not even
Can
doing.
I offer one bit
Yes.
of advice?
Please.
If you're talking much delay, I mean, with option or phase 1, you need to move it into 2 phases, because you can't wait much longer. And we're at a timeline in which decisions would have to be made to make that happen. So if that is the case, if that's your desire, you need to just roll that in there, because you don't want to give our families, our students, any shorter fuse on this than exists. So I think that has to happen. And then some guidance, I think, for long range and cooperative strategy or WUPERT, on then when you're really wanting that final decision, and then re-back plan and reschedule open houses and that sort of thing, so.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
President
and
Waters,
then,
I just
and
kinda
then,
went.
and then Ms. Snodgrass.
I do want to highlight, I know for those that this is the first time, right? Having like a hybrid option be presented after conversation seems like it's like abnormal. It's been it's happened the last time too, where a small addition, like when we did the elementary ones, it was like there was option A, option B, and option A.2 or something like that, where there was a small change that occurred into that attendance area. So that's something that like we have seen when we've done this before. I at least just want to say that in that kind of sense. I don't want anyone to be feeling like that it's massively out of practice in the way that we have done this before in the past, like where due to the feedback, there are some tweaks that occur in what was there, because it is utilizing what was already presented and making some changes. It's not saying like massively a new one is there.
Pulling something out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just say what I said stands. I mean, that was like, it was my question, right? Like, is there a reason we can or can't? I do feel like we have a meeting already scheduled for next Wednesday, and that potentially that is between now and then time to process and discuss and continue to collect feedback on the options we're given, and also that then board members, including myself, can have more time, or especially myself, I don't know, maybe other people have decided, can get more information and have those additional conversations with administration and potentially with Karen as well, in terms of what does it look like if the process is adjusted versus it isn't. Like right now, we have this meeting, a special meeting scheduled to vote, and the vote is either going to be that we choose one of the options or we don't. So I guess I'm not sure. Does it? My question, I guess, to Randy, to you, and Dr. Yearwood, and do we have to make that full decision right now, or can we have this week and a half to think about what all those different ramifications are, regardless of what that decision may be? Because already a decision wasn't going to be made until Wednesday, right? Like next Wednesday, not 2 days from now.
I think with all the things that are going to happen, we need to make happen during that time, if there's a possibility and a likelihood that this is going to get compressed into 2, I think I would prefer, and I think it would be the most, it gives our families the most amount of heads up, because we've decided that we're moving it. I'm afraid if we delay this first phase longer, that it's going to be very problematic. And I think if there's enough, depending on where you're at, if that's truly what you think, that needs to be canceled and rolled into 2 and 3, I think that's the decision you need to make. But I really think we need to make that tonight, because to be able to collect the surveys, that sort of thing, if there's any, because there was mention of another look at long range. I don't know how we get that exactly done. So if that idea and the process that we talked about at the very first of this presentation isn't going to go, I would really like for you to make some definitive decision tonight on what our path is. Because even if you're moving the decision on all of it, or 2 and 3 until September, it's still a fairly aggressive timeline, because you are going to get into July and you're going to get into August, where the ability to convene and receive feedback and meet with long range is going to be diminished. That's just the reality of public schools. Summer you don't have that continuity like you do. So I think it'll still be a pretty aggressive timeline, even if you go with that timeframe.
I want to add also, Heather, I was just talking, wasn't this originally supposed to be made in May? Or are we mistaken?
Did I just dream that up?
Yeah.
Because I swear we just had that conversation in long range, that originally it was supposed to be in May. The vote was, we talked about in that May, and then we decided to have the special session instead, to vote at the special session instead of doing it at the May regular meeting. I thought we just talked about that at long range.
Well, you've had a lot of feedback from educators about the time that's going to take for enrollment. They want to be able to communicate with those families to help that transition to be as seamless and as friendly as possible.
Yes.
So we talked about if we're going into May, that's going to cut another 2.5 weeks out of that timeline.
I don't want to make a decision on phase one on May 13th at a regular meeting with the last day of school coming, days later. That doesn't help children who are going to be leaving their school and going to a new school to find out a week before. So that's why we talked about doing it in April, and that was feedback from the principals who are going to be affected. Carrie Graham, who's going to have to hire people to teach at Russell. She can't find out in May, and then so again, and I mean that brings me back to this incredibly compressed timeline, and I'm going to say it is. I don't think it's reasonable to ask the board to come up with a decision on the spot right now. What are we going to do with this new option, with this new question? I think we need to have a minute to think about what is the best way to handle this. And it's 10:30 at night, and we've been here for 6 hours, and we might need a minute to process this. So I am going to ask that we have the flexibility to get the information from Karen on Wednesday. And then if we decide that one of the options definitely makes sense and we are able to confidently go for one of them, then we have the option to vote. And if it looks like, and we're going to need Karen's input on this, if it looks like potentially some of the current attendance, the schools that are impacted by phase one are also going to be involved in phases 2 and 3, and the middle school, if any of that is going to be affecting what happened in phase one, that is relevant information for us to have when we're making those decisions. So if we get to next Wednesday and it looks like this is not the best time to try to make this decision right now, then we vote to postpone to a 2-phase option, and phase 2 would then include the Russell Addition area and the elementary, and the Elliott Battle Elementary attendance area.
So just to clarify, you want to continue with an email tomorrow about the surveys. The surveys will end at 5:30 on Thursday. We will try to get you that information on Friday in a summary, which would include some feedback on the third option. And then we'll continue with a special session on April 17th at 6 p.m.
Yes.
Okay.
And at that time, the board will vote to either approve one of the 3 options or decide to postpone. All right. Thank you for allowing us to have that discussion. I think it was necessary.
Thank you.
Okay. And we realized that was a lot of pivoting. Okay. Coming now to the consideration of the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone needs removed from the consent agenda? April?
Yes, because I'd like to spend all night with all of you for my birthday. So I would like to motion to move.
You don't need to make a motion, you just request.
I just would like to, 9B, Title I, Reading Recovery Memorandums of Understanding, just for separate consideration.
For separate consideration,
Yeah,
okay. So, Mr. Cobbins, just so you understand the way this works, when we remove an item for separate consideration, that does not require a second. It's just, we're going to just do that separately. So now, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 9B?
I move to approve the consent agenda minus 9B.
Is there a second? Okay, and April seconds. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda is adopted. We will now consider item 9B, the Title I Reading Recovery Memorandum of Understanding. Is there a motion to approve that?
I move
will
to approve.
Okay, second? And, oh, Mr. Cobbins wants to second that. Second. Okay, yeah, there you go. Is there any discussion? Mr. Lyman?
I just have one question. So I think I understand, what's going on with this. Districts are, mid-Missouri districts are effectively hiring some of our expert teachers to help out with, reading, recovering, getting some training on that to take back to their home schools. Those districts are paying Columbia Public Schools. Are those teachers that are offering that training, are they getting any sort of stipend or anything from the district in being those master teachers and offering that training?
Correct. So currently we have Stephanie Maddox, who is Reading Recovery certified. She does these trainings across the district. She typically does this during the course of the summer months, and so she is then compensated for providing that training to districts that are outside of Columbia who also have Title I Reading Recovery in their building.
Ms. Brown?
All right, so, and this is typically a program that's just that's in title buildings,
Correct.
right? And this is being requested by other districts because this is something that they would like to offer in their district.
Correct.
Right? You guys aren't asking the board to approve the reading recovery program. That is something that we already do within CPS, correct?
Correct.
So this is just to ask us to say, hey, can these teachers who have been doing this for years go work with these districts?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, we will go ahead and vote. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have approved the MOU for the Title I Reading Recovery Memorandum of Understanding. So we have a couple items of unfinished business. We have the consideration of the weapons detection service and final approval. Is there a motion to approve that system?
I move to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? We did have a lot of discussion at the previous work session. All right, this will be a roll call vote. Mic's on. Everyone, go ahead and turn your mic on. Yep, you're good.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Ms. Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Cobbins?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Lyman?
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
And Ms. Waters?
Yes. All right, thank you. The weapons detection system has been approved. Is there a motion to, did you have a motion? We will do this first. Okay, is there a motion to approve policy BDDH1?
I am going to ask that BDDH1 be sent back to policy committee, and if I can get a second, I'll explain why.
Second.
The reason is because we had some discussion in the last meeting, Mr. Willoughby and I, related to one of the provisions under public comment, specifically the one that set the priorities. And after hearing some other public comment on that particular provision, I don't believe it's as clear as it should be. And one of the goals of BDDH was clarity. And because it's not clear, at least as to those few comments we have received, I would like that it go back to policy committee just to fix that paragraph, please.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to remove this policy, refer this policy back to the policy committee. So a yes vote will make sure that it goes back to committee and eventually make it back to the board, and a no vote will mean that we sit here and discuss this policy. I suppose. Okay. All in favor of?
It's a roll call.
Oh, it is a roll call vote. Yep.
Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Lyman?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Mr. Cobbins?
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
Ms. Waters?
Yes. All right. Thank you, Paul. We will look forward to your updates after the next policy meeting. Okay, we're moving on to new business. We have, this is not an action item, even though it's under new business, because it is a first read for the Heartland Mosaic web-based platform for nutrition services. Do we have someone that's going to talk about this?
Mr. Gooch, you have anything on the? Oh, there's Mrs. Fulham. Never mind. Sorry.
I knew she was here.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm willing to take questions, but what we're doing is changing our system again, because the last system, as we had discussed when I gave a presentation earlier in the year, was kind of a disaster. The software company promised a lot of things, and they never delivered on even half of it. So that's why we're asking to have a new system put into place. There's a lot of problems with the one we're currently using.
Okay, that's fair enough. So board members, if anyone has questions about that system, you can direct them to Dr. Yearwood, who will filter them to Ms. Fulham, and then we will approve, or we will consider this contract for final approval at our April work session. Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fulham.
Absolutely.
And I'm so sorry to keep you here this late.
Oh, that's okay. Thanks.
Next, we have another first bid. It's the consideration of the professional learning management system. Do we have anyone talking about that contract? Yes. Okay, thank you.
All right, back again. The big thing for us is when we talk about a professional learning management system, our current PD Express option is outdated. It's no longer working for us. It is termed out. They no longer provide support for it. One of the things that we need in relation to our professional development platform is a means to be able to support our teachers with providing a profile of all of the things that they've had the opportunity to participate in with respect to their professional development. That is then communicated. We have responsibilities to report out to the state what professional learning and even what credentials our teachers have acquired. This will allow for us to have a singular platform that speaks to our systems and allow for that to happen. So I can field any questions you may have.
I'm going to guess that questions from the board will filter through Dr. Yearwood and then to you, and we will
wonderful.
Do that at the work session
Gotcha.
next Thursday.
Bam.
Thank you.
All right.
And then finally, we have the consideration of the Columbia Public Schools and EOS, the Equal Opportunity Schools Collaboration Agreement. And we did already hear a presentation about that. So if there are additional questions, please send them to Dr. Yearwood, and we will consider that for final approval at the work session also. Part of the reason we do the first reads is so the public also has a chance to see the contracts and field questions to the board, or the board can field questions from the public and get those asked ahead of time. All right, so this is an action item. There's consideration of the new Southwest Elementary Construction Management at Risk Guaranteed Maximum Price Proposal Amendment Number 2. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anyone need any explanation on that?
I'll just explain it briefly.
Go ahead.
Randy, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this. Basically what this is our construction manager at risk giving us that guarantee on this is how much it's going to cost to do the portion of the building that is in this information here. And we got this that one time for the CACC. And so this is basically now that they have did all the additional bids to all the other companies to help do the construction. This is what they are telling us is going to be that maximum price. One of the things also, just as a reminder, any additional money that doesn't get utilized for the buildings comes back to the school district. Our construction manager at risk company does not take any of that additional money. And so they're like, just know that they're not getting like a cut if they cut corners or they're able to make some savings, like all of that does go back to the district.
Thank you.
I think there was a question about like budget savings too, so I just want to explain like the difference, like what between like they had a budget that was presented on the scorecard that happened to be more than what our budget was. And so they're saying like it came in under their budget. That's not really under the budget that we have available for our bond funds. The original estimate was far and above what we had available. So it's not like we have this extra $2 million sitting around. We're just now within a range that we actually have funds available within the other projects that we need to have done within those bond funds available, which we'll talk about during our capital projects authorization.
Yes, because 80 million is the new 40 million.
Correct.
Okay, so we have a first and we have a motion and a second to approve this amendment proposal. So it's just approving that we're going to go ahead and say, yes, you can amend our agreement. This is a roll call vote. Is everybody ready? Mic's on, please.
Okay. Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Mr. Cobbins?
Yes.
Mr. Lyman?
Yes.
Ms. Waters?
Yes. All right, we'll move on to the capital projects. Is there a motion to approve the capital projects as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. MacArthur, or does anyone have any outright questions?
And I won't walk through every project since we already did that last week at long range and at finance unless there's specific questions. I just want to like kind of give a brief overview again for the whole board about the projects or the process for capital projects. There's 2 documents that's attached to this agenda item. There's one, it's not on my screen, but it's on my screen, but it's not on your screen. Sorry. So that looks like this, and this shows our revenue and expenditure planning. Both of these documents has the same list of projects on it, but this one that looks like in the landscape version has our revenues and how that's determined. So what we are the main projects that we are new that you guys are voting on tonight are those what we call local capital projects, and that comes from our local recurring revenue that comes every year, which is largely from our property tax revenue. There's a portion of our property tax levy that goes into our capital projects fund, and that's about $3 million. Also, I just want to mention real quick how we voted on this in committee last week. The other large line item in the local revenue column, which is the column on the left-hand side after the description, is that other financing sources, which includes our transfers from our operating fund. So every year we're going to have transfers from our operating fund to pay the principal and interest payment on this building, the Aslan building, also the nature school, because it's a different kind of debt. It's not general obligation bonds. It's required by statute to be paid from operating funds. So we transfer those over. Also, there's a $3 million transfer for technology services items, which are to replace on the replacement cycle for next year as our staff devices, which are now about between $1,200 and $1,300, so they're over the $1,000 limit that has to be paid for out of the capital projects fund. So what normally would have been budgeted for them out of the technology services operating fund now is moving from the operating fund over to the capital projects fund. And then last week, the final item we decided was to vote to transfer the additional $1 million from the operating fund to the capital projects fund to fund the improvements for the Rosetta building. So the total transfers through there are $5.7 million. So that's the projected revenue. So then in this, you can see then underneath that column, the additional projects that were allocated from our local capital. And then of course our 3 main bond projects that we talked about that you were just discussing, our Southwest Elementary School, which is now right at about $43.5 million. There's a little bit of money that is going to be spent in the current year, but that total project budget is around $45 million. We have $7.5 million for Battle Elementary and a $24.5 million total budget for the Career Center. About right under 20 million of that is going to roll forward. Some of that obviously is already ongoing since construction has started this spring. That will spend, again, just a reminder also, we do contract and we show the budget for the full amount of those projects, even though some of those projects might roll from year to year, because once we have a contract, we incur a liability and want to make sure that we have enough funds to cover the full amount of those capital projects that will occur going forward. So again, right over $90 million in capital projects that we're requesting approval for the 24-25 budget. Again, we do this early because some of those projects we can, if we can get them done and get contracts done, we like to be able to take advantage of the time when children are not in school this summer to be able to move forward with some of those projects.
Thank you. Are there any questions about the capital improvements?
I just wanted to make a comment. Both Long Range Facilities Planning Committee and Finance unanimously recommended this to the board for approval.
Thank you. That's good to know. There's a motion and a second. So a yes vote will approve this list of capital improvement projects, and a no vote will not approve it. So please turn on your mics. This will be another roll call vote.
Okay, Ms. Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Cobbins?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Lyman?
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Ms. Waters?
Yes. All right, and then we have the consideration of the 23-24 budget amendments. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Are there any questions outright about those? Go ahead, Ms. Farrow.
I don't really have any questions per se, but I wanted to say that I appreciated going through this list and noticing that there were a few items on there that were on building capital improvement requests. And I appreciate administration looking at how they could fund some of those things through a different mechanism.
Definitely, largely, a lot of these items that you see on here are things we've already talked about. The largest line items are increases in local property tax revenue that we talked about early in the year with when we set our tax levy back in August, again, when our final assessed valuation came in December. And so those large line items there, we do have some additional interest revenue due to increased interest rates that's going in there, and a lot of net zero transfers from the operating fund into the capital projects fund, or from our student activity funds or grants and donations fund or nutrition services fund into the capital projects fund, to be able to make sure some of those capital purchases that need to be done now, or that buildings or departments want to be done now, that we can get those done now.
Thank you. All right, seeing no questions, there is a motion and a second on the floor to approve the budget amendments. A yes vote will approve the budget amendments, and a no vote will not. Mic's on, please.
Okay. Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Ms. Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Cobbins?
Yes.
Mr. Lyman?
Yes.
Ms. Waters?
Yes. All right, next we have the consideration of the construction agreements, engagements, and change orders. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So these are all done in one lump sum together. Are there any questions about those? So a yes vote will approve all of these items 1 through 6, and a no vote will not. There's a motion and a second to approve. This is a roll call vote. Mic's on, please.
Okay. Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Cobbins?
Yes.
Ms. Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Lyman?
Yes.
Ms. Waters?
Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us. We're going to wrap this up shortly. We have one last item on our business agenda, which is the consideration of a resolution opposing the expansion of charter schools in Boone County. I will read it, and then we will have a roll call vote on it. Well, I will read it, and then I will ask for a motion to approve it, because since it was not attached, we have not seen it. Whereas the Missouri General Assembly is currently debating whether to expand charter schools in Boone County, and whereas charter schools are funded by state and local taxes but are not accountable to the taxpayers, and whereas board members of a charter school are not elected, do not have to live within the district, and are not required to complete minimum training, And whereas the proposed provision to expand charter schools into Boone County does not align with previous legislation requiring a public school district to be in an unaccredited status. And whereas Columbia Public Schools is an accredited district with the 5th largest enrollment in the state of Missouri and is one of the most diverse school districts in Missouri. And whereas Columbia Public Schools outperforms state and national averages on the ACT and has a long history of providing educational choice within the school district. And whereas if the General Assembly allows charter schools to expand into Boone County, local taxpayers will not have a say in whether a charter school is needed through local voter authorization. And whereas the Columbia community has locally invested in its public schools through the support of 14 consecutive bond issue proposals since 1994 and 4 tax levy increases since 1999 for the sole purpose of ensuring all our community's children have access to a free and appropriate public education. And whereas charter school expansion would burden local taxpayers by dividing money between duplicate education systems without an increase in enrollment. And whereas when a charter school closes or terminates the enrollment of a student, local school districts are the safeguard to ensure all students in their community receive a free and appropriate public education. And whereas our local taxpayers demand effective and efficient use of the resources they provide our school district. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of Columbia Public Schools hereby urges legislators in the General Assembly to provide Boone County a voice by requiring a vote of its citizens to authorize expansion of charter schools in Boone County in the state of Missouri, adopted by the Columbia Board of Education this 8th day of April 2024. Is there a motion to approve such resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will have a roll call vote to approve this resolution.
Sorry. Okay, Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Ms. Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Cobbins?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes.
Mr. Lyman?
Absolutely.
Ms. Waters?
Yes. Thank you, board, and thank you all for bearing with us. We have a couple of board member announcements in addition to April's birthday and Heather's birthday. Paul's birthday was last week. Blake had a birthday since we last met, and I didn't want anyone to feel left out. Are there any other board member announcements? Oh, Mr. Lyman's on the radio tomorrow.
And he is the board responder for the month.
And he's board responder for the month.
I always like to make sure everybody knows who the board responder is for the month.
Thank you.
That's just my
All right.
job at every meeting.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, raise your hand. Mr. Cobbins, seconded. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. I don't think anyone's going to be opposed to that. Overruled. Okay, thank you. We are adjourned.